Can we have a bit? Are they working these?
Yeah, they are. We'll try again.
Can we have a bit quiet, please? Thank you. Councillor Lowe wants to say a few words. Thank you, Councillor.
Mr. Mayor. August 1895, here in Huddersfield, at the George Hotel, the greatest sport of all, to me and many others, was born. Rugby League. Over the years, Rugby League has produced many legendary players, which include the likes of Billy Boston, Reg Gasnier, Alex Murphy. The first Challenge Cup competition was held during the 1896-97 season. That was the second season of the new game, and 52 clubs entered to compete for the trophy. The first final was held at Headingley in Leeds on the 24th of April 1897. Batley v St Helens. And as a Batley lass born and bred and proud, it always fills me with great pride knowing that the winners of the very first Rugby League Challenge Cup was Batley, winning 10 points to 3. I've been a Batley supporter now for 49 years, and I've seen some fantastic players at the Mount over the years, and we now have some future stars. Archie Bruce was one of those stars. From the age of 5, Archie was raring to go with Dewsbury Moor. He had a great gift for the game. Invited then, when he was 19, to train with Batley Bulldogs, but still maintaining his amateur status and playing with his beloved Moor. Coming from a loving rugby league family, their support enabled Archie to grasp the opportunity with both hands to dedicate himself to play his dream sport. August 17th was a very proud day for the excited Archie, his family and friends when he made his Batley Bulldogs debut playing away at Toulouse. Archie made an immediate impact with spectators eager to shout out, "Wow, who is this kid?" Both his playing ability and his smiles lit up that game. But the next day, the unthinkable happened. As Batley Bulldogs made their journey home, but with one player short. Archie Bruce sadly died in the early hours of August the 18th at just 20 years of age. I can't imagine the pain that his family was suffering. My son's 22 years old, and whenever my son goes out, I will always say to him, be good, be safe, be careful. He always tells me not to worry. I say I always do. I'm his mum. It's in my job description. At the time, I sent my heartfelt love, prayers and thoughts to Archie's family, friends, and to everyone at Batley Bulldogs. Time has passed us by, but this is the first full council when I've had the opportunity to speak about Archie. And I'd like to ask that the Chief Executive, on behalf of the council, writes to the family of Archie Bruce, expressing his council's condolences. Archie Bruce, always a Bulldog. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. This is the first meeting of council using the new equipment on the desk in front of us, of every councillor. Is a diagram that shows the functions of the buttons on your console, including the button to indicate when and what to speak, and there are 3 buttons displaying the voting options. Thank you in advance for the patience, and we will get familiar with the system very soon. Are there any apologies? Sorry, I think we've skipped the Chief Executive. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a good news announcement. We just wanted to extend our warmest congratulations to our colleague Olivia Barden, who has been named Youth Librarian of the Year. Olivia, who's been working with Kirklees Library since 2003, received the award at a conference earlier this year in Birmingham. The Enid Blyton Estates support the Youth Libraries Group to administer the award, which recognises the innovation and dedication by a staff member working with children and young people in a public library setting. This award is further recognition of the hard work, commitment and dedication that Kirklees librarians show to visitors and young people in particular. We should be very proud of our library service. To be awarded the Youth Librarian of the Year is a great honour, and I am sure all of us would wish to extend our congratulations to Olivia on this significant achievement.
Thank you for that. Are there any apologies or absence?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, apology from Councillor Darren O'Donovan and Councillor Naseen that be arriving soon. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sokol. Anybody else? I move on to item 3. I've been advised that the Councillor Eastwood did not attend the last council meeting. Did attend the last council meeting. Also, he was a bit late at the start. I have moved that the subject of amendment of the list of the attendees, the minutes of the meeting of council held on the 17th July 2019 be approved as a correct record. Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you. Can we please vote by show of hands? Item 4. Members who have any interest should disclose their interest now. Are there any interest to declare? Can I just ask Julie Musgrove to make an announcement? Thank you.
Okay, the screen looks like it's not.
Ooh, not guilty.
Okay. On again. Turn it on again. Okay.
When in doubt.
Okay. I just want to. Okay. Hi, folks. A number of people. Okay. I've had a number of queries about declaring interest on item 19 relating to free TV licences. So a number of members either have an interest directly or are related to or enjoy the benefit of that in their household. So rather than everybody stand up and declare an interest, it is not a pecuniary interest, it's another interest. So I'm suggesting that people fill in the declaration of interest form and give it to myself or to Penny. You are entitled to speak and vote on the matter when we get to that item. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. Can I remind any members who have declared an interest to complete the form? Yes, Gwen. Yes, Councillor Law.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I need to declare an interest in item 11, another interest, because my daughter is employed by Kirklees Active Leisure.
Thank you. Anybody else? Right. Can I remind any members who have been... That's a bit late. Go on. Who's seconding it? Who's going to second it? Councillor Leslie. Okay. Right, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I have all those who are supporting the original,
No, changing the agenda.
changing the agenda, all in favour? All against?
Not carried.
That's not carried. Item 5, from members of the council, are there any petitions?
Mayor, I have a petition, but unfortunately I've encountered a downloading problem, so I will be handing it in tomorrow if that's acceptable. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine, thank you.
Thank you.
In accordance with the council procedure 9.3, I direct that the subject matters of the petition be referred to the appropriate service directors for investigation.
Can you just check what the petition's about?
Can we just ask what the petition is about, please?
Very traffic calming measures. Thank you.
Item 6, to receive a deputation or a petition from members of the public. There are 5 deputations this evening. The first petition is subject matters of your deputations. You have 5 minutes to present your deputations. Thank you. You can go ahead now.
Okay, thanks very much. So, we're very pleased to be here to speak to motion item 17. So I'm Dr. Andrew Smith, Bradford University. This is Dr. Joe McBride from all this bureaucracy.
Sorry about that. It's just a new system we've installed. Sorry about that.
You can start from Joe McBride, that's going to be happening in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Got an egg timer.
Can I apologise to you all about this? We've had a bit of a teething problem, so can you please stay quiet? Thank you.
Order.
It's making it difficult for me.
Next door. What? Next door.
Right, sir, you can carry on.
Okay,
Thank you.
Already. So I'm very pleased to be here to speak to motion item 17. So this is Dr. Joe McBride from Durham University. I'm Dr. Andrew Smith, Bradford University. So the motion's related directly to the research we've done. So this is independent research on low-paid workers with more than one job. It's the first ever research done in the UK to look at low-paid workers who need to do more than one job in order to make ends meet. And this is the first council that's ever moving to adopt the recommendations from the said report, and we've got copies of these available in the reception room. So we all know there's increasing interest in issues around low pay, foundation living wage, national living wage, temporary contracts, casual contracts, agency, and 0 hours contracts. A lot of this was really surprising to us. So the majority of the workers were women, age ranges right across from the teens up until the 60s. In terms of education, we spoke to a lot of workers with NVQs, GCSEs, A-levels, degrees, master's degrees, because these were the only jobs they could actually get. So one of the key things to draw out of this is a change in labour market we've got. A lot of people are doing more than one job. We spoke to workers doing 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Joe interviewed a young lad in Newcastle doing 7 different jobs. So this is all around this proliferation of low-paid work, limited hours work, 0 hours work, agency work, temporary work, and outsourced work.
And as you can imagine, we weren't expecting to find anyone who was in poverty, especially when they've got more than one job. But when we're going out to do the research and we're speaking to people, we started to find that people we didn't ask anyone if they were in poverty because they had more than one job. But when we were analysing all the data, we started to realise that people were struggling, and everyone we spoke to was struggling financially in one form or another, and they were in the position of having more than one job to help them survive. It wasn't out of choice. We know people can have more than one job out of choice, but these people who we spoke to had more than one job because they had no choice. They had to have more than one job. And we found some people were using food banks. And remember, we were talking to people with up to 7 jobs, and people were using food banks. And we found people in near poverty, occasional poverty, recurrent poverty, all the different depths of poverty that you can find in the academic literature and research. And we found some people actually in deprivation poverty, which is a new word that's now being used, that was introduced from Philip Alston's report, the UN rapporteur who came to the UK in November, who introduced deprivation poverty in the UK, because some people were using effectively what is a soup kitchen in Newcastle. And there was one woman in particular that I was absolutely horrified. She was using the soup kitchen to get hot food and clothes and to get a shower, and she had 2 jobs as a care worker. Just going to leave that one out there as well. In terms of working time arrangements and work-life balance, well, nobody really had any work-life balance, because the working times that people had were complex, segmented, elongated shifts that invariably covered unsocial hours, starting at 6 o'clock in the morning, finishing at midnight. A lot of people we're speaking to had 2, 3, 4 hours sleep a night.
You've got 30 seconds to go.
Right, so we weren't expecting anyone, we weren't surprised to find people who were suffering from depression as well. So.
Yeah. And just lastly, in full support of the motion to look at an affordable living wage, dignity and fair treatment at work, and information gathering to try and ameliorate the negative effects of low pay in work poverty and the impact on mental health and well-being as well.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Councillor Turner?
Never mind. Good evening, Mr. Smith. I didn't get your name.
It's Joe McBride.
Thanks to both very much for coming along this evening and giving us a really impassioned speech about the lot of work. As you're aware, this is on the agenda. All times are treated with respect and the dignity they deserve. Several years ago, this council in this very chamber agreed to introduce a local living wage, and that is something I and my colleagues are very proud to have been a part of. In a country as rich as this, it cannot be right that some people have to have multiple jobs and yet still struggle to make ends meet. And some of those jobs, as you mentioned, are in the most challenging and difficult areas of the country. We all know that these residents and families that live in poverty will have more health issues, live less long than those with decent incomes, and children in poverty will have lower educational outcomes than those who come from a more affluent background. Is this the way to treat hard-working people? Whoever wins the forthcoming general election must make sure that this issue is a priority, and that if you work, you should have a decent standard of living and not have to rely on food banks to feed your kids. Thank you.
It's not good for me. I'm looking for myself.
Pass it to me. Okay, members, I think it's just worth noting it is the first time we've used this technology. It has been tested to death and there has not been a problem. And today we have got a number of glitches. So IT are in the background. Please be assured, though, it is all still being recorded so we can sort it out after the event. But apologies while we go through the system. Yeah, okay. So, okay. Thank you for that, Spencer.
Thank you. Welcome to the meeting. Please can you introduce yourself and the subject matter of your deputations. You have 5 minutes to present your deputations. Thank you.
Right, good evening, everyone. My name is Ron Berry. I live at number 24 Care Lane in Almonbury. I'm here this evening to present a petition signed by the residents in Almonbury calling for traffic calming measures to be introduced on Westgate and Care Lane. The petition I'm handing in has been signed by 268 people. In the 4 years I've lived on Care Lane, I've seen the situation getting worse each year. Residents who have lived there much longer than me report a much greater increase not only in the volume and speed of traffic, but also the aggression of drivers. I also attach a page telling you about recent accidents on Kay Lane and Westgate. I'll refer to 1 or 2 incidents, but the rest are all here, you can read them yourself. During the summer of this year, a car travelling down Kay Lane at 11:30 at night hit a parked car, overturned onto its roof, and the driver had to be cut out by the fire brigade. A teenage cyclist was knocked off his bike near Castle Hill a few weeks later and had to be lifted out by air ambulance. There was a fatal crash a few years ago when 2 cars met at speed driving through a gap between 2 buses which had stopped opposite each other. The bus stops were relocated, but no action was taken to reduce traffic speed. Cars accelerate hard both going up and down Kay Lane, often exceeding 50 miles an hour when passing my house at number 24. I've had to mount the pavement on occasion on the opposite side of the road when coming out of my drive to avoid cars speeding downhill that have come over the brow of the hill at great speed. Residents over the brow of the hill experience problems daily with cars coming over at speed who are unable or unwilling to slow down to allow them to turn into their drives. And these cars take the traffic islands on the wrong side of the road to avoid slowing down. This is at the end of Wheatroyd Lane. And cars regularly crash into that wall opposite Wheatroyd Lane, but of course these accidents are not reported because the drivers themselves are out of lane. Visibility is severely restricted exiting drives onto Kay Lane and Westgate by vehicles parked half on the footpath on both sides of the road. One resident had 2 cars written off in quick succession last year, so excavated his front drive, his front garden, to get his cars off the road. And vehicles are more and more regularly overtaking cars, abiding by the speed limits. Kay Lane, Westgate, as some of you will know, is a rat run between areas to the west of Almonbury and the motorway to the east. It's also, we've found out, being used by drivers between Huddersfield and Honley-Home Firth because this is one route where there are no speed cameras at all on that route. Now, the situation has become completely untenable and requires action to prevent a very serious accident or loss of life. And I'm very concerned that a fatality is going to occur, especially with all the young children that live on that road, either living there or grandchildren visiting. And it is a very, very dangerous road now. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Walker?
Making his deputation and presenting the petition. Road safety has got to be a prime concern for the local authority. I will ensure that the concerns that you have raised are examined in detail by senior highways officers. After they've carried out further investigations looking at the evidence, they will provide you with a detailed written report, and I would also welcome the opportunity to discuss that with you further. Thank you.
No. Thank you for attending to present your deputation. And thank you. Can I have the next deputation, please? Welcome to the meeting. Please can you introduce yourself and the subject matters of your deputation. You have 5 minutes to present your deputation. You can start now. Thank you.
the air and benefit our mental and physical health. They make our town and countryside beautiful. The vast majority of scientists accept that the land set aside for woodland and forestry needs to rise worldwide. Kirklees needs to do its bit and do it quickly. Please take our proposals for a Kirklees tree strategy seriously.
My name's Rebecca Gilmore. Kirklees declared a climate emergency on the 16th of January 2019. Trees sequester about 1 tonne each of CO2 in 50 years. Almost all of the carbon is returned to the atmosphere when a tree is felled and burned. Since the declaration, Kirklees has cut down healthy, mature street trees and at least 50 full-grown trees at the Highfields site, right next to where I live. And that's just in a few months. We're also not aware of Kirklees' plans for widespread tree planting in this tree planting season. Kirklees Council is failing in a simple and core part of a strategy to deal with the climate emergency. And you also know that trees reduce the threat of flooding. There are more weather extremes these days. They reduce and remove dust, toxic gases, particularly pollutants in the urban environment. They improve the aesthetic environment in both urban and rural landscapes. They reduce the impact of high temperatures in the rural environment. They enhance habitat for wildlife. They enhance people's well-being, and they're a core part of biodiversity. So what we're wanting is a tree planting policy that includes a proper policy. The council's been talking about developing a tree policy for over 2 years. And until there is an agreed policy involving the council and all interested parties, then we're wanting all street tree felling to be suspended. The only exception, obviously, being when there's immediate danger. We're also wanting a commitment to urban replanting. We're wanting the council to audit all of their own owned sites. Where can more trees be planted on council land? And we're wanting to encourage schools to plant trees, to devise a tree-friendly school charter mark.
Protect existing trees and promote more trees through the planning system. The local plan should be updated to reflect the importance of protecting existing trees and increasing tree cover in helping combat the climate emergency. Planning decisions should reflect this. The wholesale felling of existing trees on developmental sites must not be allowed, and planting new trees should be a condition of planning permission under section 106.
You've got 30 seconds. Thank you.
No, we haven't. I'm timing this. Sorry to complete this.
We're timing it too.
Finally, we are asking for a new determination to see the Northern Forest happen. The Northern Forest is failing, it's just not happening. We need you to turn the ambitions for the Northern Forest into actuality, into action. Please can you tell us what the plans for planting at Northern Forest sites are this planting season? We might need much more on this. These are our demands. It is an emergency. You told us this, but we see trees felled, not planted.
Thank
Please
you. Your
publish a
time's
tree
over. Thank you very
policy.
much. On my clock, it's over, so I don't know. Maybe put it a bit late. Thank you. Councillor Walker.
A determination to achieve our contribution to the Northern Forest. And to achieve that, we can only do it really in partnership with the wider community. You've raised quite a number of issues. I will try and address those. First point really about the trees that have been cut down. Yes, there have been some trees that have been removed in the Gledholt and Greenhead Park area, but we have set out to replace those trees, and that will always be the case. And I can assure you that we will only remove trees in the future when it is the last resort that really. We will look at all the other options before street trees are removed. In terms of a street tree policy has been drawn up, which is ready really for approval over the next month or so. That also complements the Green Streets policy, which is an element of the White Rose Forest. I'll come back to that in a few minutes. And a commitment to urban replanting, yes, that is part of the policy, both in terms of trees that are planted along streets, but also other pockets of land in urban areas where there is an opportunity to make planting. I think you referred to the audit being carried out of trees. That's actually happening at the moment as part of the White Rose Forest work. We're actually employing specialists to do that for the whole of the area. So every single tree in the whole of Kirklees, whether it's in an urban area or one of the more rural areas, will be mapped. And we're doing that so that we can establish our current tree cover. Our ambition for the future is to achieve at least a 30% tree cover as part of the work that we're undertaking with the White Rose Forest. Question was raised about our adherence to the National Policy Planning Framework. Yes, we will seek to do that. And one of the things that's been raised at the White Rose Forest Group within the council is that we must ensure that when planning permission is being granted and we're looking at applications, the officers work with developers to ensure that opportunities for tree planting are taken. So that is really something that's very critical for us. The written information I got before the meeting asked about a commitment to plant 437,500 trees in the next 5 years. Well, as part of our commitment to the White Rose Forest, we're actually planning to plant 2 million trees over the next 25 years, aiming towards this 30% tree cover. Obviously, in the short term, we've also got to factor in what's happening with ash trees, because we estimate that we could lose anything up to 180,000 ash trees in the next 10 years. And personally, with Councillor Murgatroyd, we've had the experience of having to replace 1,500 ash trees on a piece of land in the Gurkha ward. The White Rose Forest, I think things are really moving on. I think possibly they were a little bit slow over the last 18 months or so, but I can assure you that things are now really gaining momentum again. A new group has been put together. The group is actually meeting again tomorrow. We're looking at the two aspects of that. One aspect of it comes under the heading of landscapes for water. I'm personally involved in that because I'm the chair of the Upper Home and Cone Natural Field Management Group, who are responsible for delivering a lot of that aspect of the tree planting. We're planting over this year a very substantial number of trees in the Wesleyan Valley as part of a natural flood management project which has been funded by the Combined Authority. We would actually have planted more trees if we hadn't have had some issues with landowners who've got commoners' rights in that area. But there will be a substantial amount of planting, both by people coming in, contractors, and also Colne Valley Tree Society, who've planted over 1 million trees just in the Colne Valley in the period over the last 50 years. For the future...
Councillor Walker, 30 seconds.
Right. For the future, we've got tremendous ambitions to extend the tree cover, which we're going to detail tomorrow. We're also, the other part of it is the Green Streets programme, which is about very detailed plant trees along roads, key corridors into urban areas right across Kirklees. I think it is really important that we do share that with the general public, and that is something I will reiterate at the meeting tomorrow, that we need to let people in Kirklees know what we're doing.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Thank you. Thank you for attending and to present your deputations. Thank you very much. Next. Welcome to the meeting. Please can you introduce yourself and subject matters of your deputation? You have 5 minutes to present your deputation. Thank you. You can start now.
My name's Cass Whittingham and I'm here to talk about the decision to close Almondbury Community School secondary provision. So during the consultation period, many fears and concerns were raised around where our children were going to attend school. Not to worry, I was constantly assured, you live in the new catchment area, so your child will go to King James's. When the final decisions had been made, we completed the forms for the assured transfer into the September intake of Year 7 at King James's. It was turned down. We went to appeal for this assured place at King James's, and that was turned down. My child is now on a list consisting of 75 pupils awaiting a place in Year 7 at King James's, although she has been offered a place at Newsom High School or North Huddersfield Trust, both of which are 4 public bus service rides per day away, or they are a very long walk for her. We raised these exact fears so many times to the Cabinet, and so many times our fears were dismissed. These fears were echoed in the consultation responses. Those fears were dismissed. My child in Year 7 at Almondbury Community School, like all the others still remaining at Almondbury Community School, has no idea where her education will be completed and to what standard. Will she be taught well enough to gain good marks in a range of subjects, allowing her the opportunity to attend good A-level colleges of her choice? We don't know the answers to that because as of today, we have had no further guidance from this council or the Cabinet on what the next steps are now that their promises have been broken. We cannot at this moment in time accept either Newsom or North Huddersfield Trust because there is no safe and consistent transport available. My youngest daughter is currently in Year 5 at Almondbury Community School. She is already worried for her future. There is no catchment secondary school for her because there's been an inadequate planning ahead and beyond the decision to close the school. The promised personal one-to-ones have still failed to happen. Yes, we have a meeting planned next week with council officers. Let me assure you, that was not planned by the council. Parents have had to email constantly to get this meeting arranged. We should not be the people doing the chasing. We felt let down during the consultation period, and now we feel neglected and bewildered by the lack of information available to us after this decision has been made. Promises were made by the Cabinet, they've been broken by this Cabinet, and now we feel that they need to be fixed by this Cabinet. I would also like to say that during this process, there were several councillors at various meetings who urged the Cabinet to slow the process down and think about the options that were available and plan ahead. I'd like to say thank you to those, and I'm sorry that it wasn't possible to slow the process down, but thank you for trying on our behalf.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Right. Be they in Year 5, as your younger daughter is, and your daughter in Year 7, and all those others at 8, 9, 10 and 11. The meeting next week was promised some weeks ago, and it is being arranged. It was arranged for a mutual time with the parents and with officers. And also there's quite a few different things that have to happen. Now that the decision was made back in August, the final decision after the scrutiny, when that was made, various things have been had to be put in place in order to be, not to set hairs running, to enable you to have some assurance about what is going to happen. And until the catchment areas are agreed, until the new admission limits are agreed, which is in process, we're in discussions with all the local schools, and that will be hopefully sorted, or should be sorted, before the half term, and certainly before the admissions date, where it closes on the 31st. If that doesn't happen, which it should, but if it didn't happen, please be assured that every single family will get that conversation with officers, with the school itself as well, to make sure that you and your child and all their siblings know exactly what's going to be happening to them next year.
Thank you, Councillor Carol Patterson. Thank you for attending the presentation and deputation. Thank you. Can I have the next deputation, please? Welcome to the meeting. Please can you introduce yourself and subject matters of your deputation. You have 5 minutes to present your deputation. You can start now. Thank you.
My name is Mrs Bethany Fry, and I'd also like to draw the Council's attention to matters related to the decision to close Almonbury Community School, the secondary provision part of Almonbury Community School. Specifically, that we've been left with no catchment school, the consultation proposals were misleading and further information has not been forthcoming. We live in the Almonbury catchment, however my daughter is currently in Year 6 at Kirklees Primary School. Applications are now open for high school, so we're looking for where she's going to go to high school. But the applications for admissions close in 6 short weeks on the 31st of October. We have no catchment school to apply to. We are no longer within the PAA of any high school. Revised catchment areas have not been published. Whichever secondary school we apply to, my daughter will be the lowest priority because of the distance to that school and other factors, and we are being disadvantaged because of a lack of forward planning by the council. As a family who live within the catchment but don't attend the school, we've received no direct communication on the issue. There's been no advice or support on how we should now complete the admissions form. We're told that we should put our catchment school as one of the 3 choices on the form, but as we have no catchment school, our choice is significantly limited. The public and members of this council were misled by the proposals, which described that the majority of children from Almonbury Community School from the catchment, should I say, of Almonbury Community School, would be accommodated at King James's School, with smaller numbers going to Netherhall and Newsham. King James's has not, as an academy, agreed to the proposals and cannot accept the additional admissions proposed. School places for all the children affected should have been secured and confirmed before the decision was taken to close Almonbury for new admissions. How can the council justify that the capacity numbers still add up, given that King James's cannot provide the 30 additional places proposed per year? Without the promised places at King James's, the numbers don't add up. And we're also told that our next nearest school, Netherhall, is also full. I'm told that Newsham High School or North Huddersfield Trust School are the only schools at which my daughter would be guaranteed a place. These schools are not local to us. We have no connection to these schools. I do not accept that an 11-year-old child should be expected to walk from Waterloo, where we live, to Newsham or Fartown at a distance of over 3 miles, or that that child should be expected to catch 4 service buses a day to get to those schools due to the fact that the LEA have failed to provide us with a local catchment school. We were offered a good school, a good local school, King James's School. That offer has now been replaced by a distant, inadequate school. We were assured that the decision to close the secondary provision at Almonbury was being made in the best interests of our children's care and education. I do not consider any of this to be in the best interest of my daughter or her peers. I trust that the council will give further consideration to these matters and extend the time that Almonbury remains open until such a time as all the children affected, not just those that are currently at the school, but all the children in the catchment area affected, are secured a place at their next nearest local school and that revised catchment areas have been published.
Councillor Pattison.
Thank you, Beth. Much of what I've got to say is what I said to your colleague earlier on, but please be assured that we are working on the catchment areas. They will be available by the 31st of October. The admissions team should be giving you the advice that you don't need to put in your application just yet. You will get the options that will be available to you before the 31st of October so that you can put that application in on the 31st or before the 31st. You will not be disadvantaged by putting it in later than other people may have done, because all of the applications for schools are not looked at until after the 31st of October. We're very aware of the feelings and the anxiety that there are amongst Year 6 and the children who are at Almonbury Community School, and we do want to give you that certainty as soon as possible. But we have got to, since the decision from the Scrutiny Committee and from the Cabinet, since that time, officers have been working. We have to go to government departments, the schools adjudicator, to get catchment areas changed. That application is in. Similarly, King James's have to do that with the education funding body. They have to put in to change their catchment area as well. That's gone in. And those two bodies know that it is urgent and we need to know by the 31st, or you need to know by the 31st of October. That will be there. We will change the admission limits. We are in negotiation, not just with North Huddersfield Trust or Newsom. We are in negotiation with King James's, with Nether Hall, and all the children will hopefully be given some certainty by the 31st of October.
Thank you, Councillor Pattison. Thank you for attending to present your deputations. Thank you. Are there any petitions? Is that petition, yeah? No. Any petitions? No, right, okay. So I stay here, it's okay. Right, we've got 5 questions. Normally it's about 15 minutes, but with the meeting's permission and my discretion, it might go over time. So is everybody okay with that? Yeah.
Group, and my questions for Councillor Mather. On Friday this week, young people around the world have called on us adults to support them in a global day of strikes in response to the climate emergency. Councils around the UK, here in Kirklees, a major event is planned in Huddersfield in response to their call. Councils around the UK are supporting the strike in different ways. Some are supporting school students and other workers. Some are encouraging their own staff to join the strike, and some will be setting off fire alarms in buildings in support. In January, this council noted the warnings of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and declared a climate emergency. You committed to publicise this to the people of Kirklees, to raise awareness and support the public to take effective action. In the light of this commitment, what steps is the Council taking to support the climate strike on Friday?
Councillor Pando.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mike, for coming to present the question.
You probably are aware that we were one of the first councils in the country to adopt a climate emergency. On the back of that, I've actually dedicated a council cabinet lead, and we have also a chair of the working party. The working party operates on a cross-party basis, and they will be responding very, very quickly in the next couple of months. In terms of your letter to myself regarding what we are going to be doing on the 24th of September, there will be an announcement being made very, very shortly. But we've got to also balance what impact any action will have. Because what I don't want to do is have an action that has an impact on wider communities. And I'll give you one quick example. There was a similar demonstration that took place in Bristol a few months ago. And people who were going to work at peak period were inconvenienced, and I'm being very, very straight with you. And that actually didn't do anything positive for a very, very important issue that affects every single one of us in this council chamber and every single one of us in our communities. And what I want to do is I want to actually make sure that the majority of our populations actually fully understand and engage with what we're trying to do. Because this is not about any activist, or this is not about any political party. This is about making sure that every single resident in our community understands and fully gets behind it. Because most of the people, right, generally just want to get on. And what I don't want to do is I don't want to actually do something that actually disrupts the normal activities of people who are trying to make their honest living. But on the back of that, we are taking your concerns and the concerns that have been raised up and down the country and internationally very seriously. Like I said, I will be making an announcement, and just because the Working Party will report back here in a month or two's time, that's not the end of it. I can guarantee you that that will be the beginning, because this is a huge agenda. You know, we are having to actually address issues that we should have addressed many months ago, many years ago, and we do take it very, very seriously. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Pando. Supplementary, sir?
I just say thanks to Councillor Pandor for his concern and for declaring the climate emergency back in January. As the climate strike is not a one-off event, as you said, it's an ongoing situation that we need to keep the pressure on. Does the Council have a plan for ongoing communication of the seriousness of the climate emergency, to raise awareness and support the public to take effective action, as was stated in the declaration back in January?
Councillor Pando again.
Yes, we do. And until the Working Party reports back, I don't have the detail in front of me. I don't know what they're going to report back on. But one thing that I am aiming to do is the Cabinet will need to take responsibility. So whatever happens, right, the Cabinet will be taking the responsibility, and ultimately I will be the responsible person. There will be an action plan. We are also going into a process where we will be setting the next year's budget, and I will also be looking at how we can actually maximise that. But one thing that we have to understand, that the issue is so important that we can't make this an activist agenda. We can't go into the habit of actually marginalising certain communities. We can't go into the habit about setting alarms off or all that kind of stuff. You know, we need to actually engage with hearts and minds. We need to engage with the majority of the community, and we need to actually make sure that every single political party actually here in Kirklees, in West Yorkshire, nationally, you know, does get behind this agenda, because it's everybody's business, and that's where we are. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Pando. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Can I have the next question, please? Next person. Welcome to the meeting. Please introduce yourself, stating your name and whom your question is addressed to, and ask your question now. Thank you.
To ask a question. Does the council have a statutory or legal obligation to provide each household in Kirklees with a school priority admission area? By not providing us with this catchment area, are you in breach of these obligations?
So for Councillor Pattison, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, Councillor Pattison.
Right. I'm not entirely sure of the legal status, but we are providing those admission areas for all children across Kirklees. And as I explained earlier, partly if it's a maintained school, we have to go to the school's adjudicator, which is a government body, and if it's an academy, as is King James's, it has to go to the education funding body. And they are the ones that agree our proposals. Thank you.
Have you got a supplementary? You want to ask another question?
Why would the schools in the area be blocked from accepting pupils from community schools?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear that because the microphone's still flashing. Could you just wait till the microphone goes red and then? You don't have to.
Can I ask why other schools, namely Newsham, have been blocked from accepting pupils from Onbury Community School who have requested to move?
Are known, which will be shortly, then we will be able to, no schools being blocked. You may make as many choices, whatever option you have, you may make that choice.
Thank you. Next question, please. Yeah, welcome to the meeting. Please introduce yourself, stating your name and whom your question is addressed to. You can ask the question now. Thank you. Sorry about the system, it's a bit slow, so you have to bear with us.
Oh, it's here. Heather Peacock, Rob Walker, please. I know it was mentioned about planting trees in a building planning site, but what about the existing question?
Councillor Walker?
Yeah, well, I think that is the norm already, that we should be looking at sites where there are trees on site, and careful consideration would be made by officers within the planning department, and we have people who are specialists in terms of trees. So they will be doing those, they will be looking at whether or not there are tree preservation orders around things, but they will also just be looking generally at sites to look at the value of trees and ways in which, wherever possible, we can preserve them. If there's a situation where trees are being felled, what I think is really important is that we look at how they can be replaced, and if possible, be replaced with trees of better quality than the ones that we're removing. So I think that, yeah, I think that's a good point. We should consider that when we're looking at planning applications.
Have you got a supplementary? You want to ask a supplementary question? Oh, is that a separate one? Right, okay. Right, welcome to the meeting. Please introduce yourself, stating your name and whom the question is addressed to. Can you please ask your question?
Good evening. I'm Adrian Steigel, and another question for Councillor Walker. I'm a member of the Woodlands Trust. Does the councillor know that when challenged, they state that there are no plans for planting any national forest trees this coming season, and therefore is the planting at Westenden definite?
Councillor Walker.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised about that, given they've spent many hours talking to Doug Edmondson from the Woodland Trust. There are trees being planted in Wessendon, including the Converley Tree Society are involved in that, and some of the other partners. It may be that some of the trees that they were planting are part of the 57 hectares, which it had been hoped we were going to plant, and we will be unable to do so. I think I mentioned earlier about the commoners who've got the grazing rights on that site. That was extremely frustrating because a lot of money was spent planning in great detail for that planting to take place. But unfortunately, because of some fairly archaic laws, that has actually been prevented. I will look into that for you and get back to you with a written response. I will look at the detail with the National Trust, who are actually working with the Woodland Trust to plan the details of the work taking place this season. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Is there any more questions? Thank you. Move on to the next agenda. Agenda number 8, following the submission of a petition which exceeded 3,000 signatures in respect of Flockton bypass, a petition debate shall now take place. I shall invite the organizer of the petition, Mr. David Rowling, to make a representation to the meeting for a maximum of 5 minutes, and then the council may debate the petition for a maximum of 15 minutes. So, yeah, go ahead, start. Yeah, thanks.
David Rawling, on behalf of the Flockton Bypass Group. The petition calling for a bypass for Flockton is soon to be debated. Calls for such a road have been going on for over 80 years. I quote Councillor McBride from our previous meeting. I've been dealing with this problem, believe me, for 50 years. 50 years, yet still the saga continues. How much longer before we have a final solution? Many intermediary attempts to improve matters in Flockton and surrounding areas have met with mixed success, including the recently introduced 20 miles an hour zone and revised weight restriction orders. The virtual total lack of visual enforcement does not help. 2 brief visits by the police, in fact, in almost 6 months, despite assurances to the contrary. Flockton is out on a limb. We await results of summarised data from recent traffic and speed counts, but whatever shown will have no real bearing on the issues themselves. Many still speeding, some overtaking on the narrow road, even when approaching bends being reported. A speed limit means nothing to too many, unfortunately, whatever it is. The weight restrictions and subsequent diversions, necessities due to the road's shortcomings, are not welcomed by our neighbours. The recent tightening of the RTO has caused further annoyance, as they have seen rising numbers of larger vehicles passing through their areas. This has been confirmed at meetings with several local parish councils, especially in the Sitlington region of Middlestown, Overton, Netherton and Horbury Bridge. They are now fully supportive of the calls for a bypass, as are the Denbydale and Kirkburton councils. Add this to support within Kirklees itself, as mentioned by Councillor McBride, along with that of MPs Paula Sheriff and Mary Cray, and from our 3 Kirkburton ward councillors. Cross-party agreement here, working and supporting as one, must surely be beneficial. Wakefield Council also agreed that there are issues in these areas. The only opposition from those groups, quite interestingly, was from 2 parish councillors who reside literally just off the road across the Cooper Bridge, which we hear could possibly be adversely affected by a bypass. Could be. Similarly at Waterloo, Council McBride Ward, as we know. We recognise there are issues there, but certainly not 10 times worse, or that 20 other places have as many very similar problems, by the way. The varying road dimensions through Flockton are so much different to most other places, and undoubtedly to those at Waterloo. It is certainly not fit to act as a major A road. We have already seen changes made to costly plans for improvements elsewhere. We also hear that many properties will be affected. We hear about the proposed North Kirklees orbital route being a priority case, yet also hear that it could well be 15 to 20 years before anything becomes of this. We know some traffic cuts a corner by using the A637 Barnsley Road and either goes through Huddersfield or via Cooper Bridge. We realise that new roads are costly, but a short 2-kilometre bypass will be quite straightforward, almost certainly without any loss to properties. We see plans put forward for improved links to the M62, yet nothing, apart from the NKOR, for the M1. Is there data available to show how many would use this route, and whether such a road would reduce traffic through Flockton and nearby significantly, if at all? If so, this could even have a reverse effect on speed reduction and safety in the village, with many still using it. Having spoken with hundreds of drivers when gathering support for the petition, we found that a large majority were reasonably local, not from further afield. We realise funding often relies on developments requiring a better infrastructure, and that those ongoing in Flockton would not be seen as sufficient to warrant the expenditure on a new road. But shouldn't other criteria come into play here? One example, Flockton is a rural area, although others mentioned a semi-rural. We regularly see many runners, ramblers, cyclists and horse riders even braving the road. May 17 saw the WCHAR being introduced. Has this been investigated for any potential funding? Another quote, "It will provide much needed improvements for pedestrians while still improving traffic flow through the area, the key requirement for receiving funding from the WYCA, the revised plans for Home Firth. Presumably there will be knock-on effects from improvements here on the road to and from Huddersfield.
30 seconds
or
left.
80 years, a problem for far too long. One you can help solve when others haven't. We call for a concentrated effort, with all mentioned working as one, for a final solution. A bypass for Flockton, a relief for so many."
Thank you, Mr. Rowling. Councillor Bolt.
Councillor Smith. Councillor Smith was surfing just now.
Well, it's gone red, sir. Yeah. Council meeting, we had a really good cross-party debate on the issue of homelessness, and I found myself agreeing with some colleagues from other groups who chose to speak thoughtfully about the issue and not to descend into partisan party politics. It made me realise that there are many things we can achieve in this chamber if we stop and think for a moment that no one political group has a monopoly on good ideas. And actually we can achieve much more when we think of the good of our communities instead of trying to score political points. The debate about the Flockton bypass typifies what we can achieve if we think as a group of Kirklees councillors about what is the best approach for Flockton and the surrounding area. When we do so, we will also realise that this issue is not just about Flockton and its immediate neighbours. It also affects the residents in many Kirklees wards. Many areas are affected by traffic on Wakefield Road and Liley Lane and ultimately Barnsley Road. I doubt anyone present would disagree with the need for a bypass. We've already heard both this evening and in previous debates about the real road safety issues for pedestrians, including school children, about the traffic, about the narrow pavements, about the narrow roads affected by large vehicles. It is clear that this road is no longer fit for purpose, especially when you consider the effect of other major road schemes which will be coming in the future. Let us not forget this council passed a motion last year which placed a duty on all of us to consider the impact of any major road scheme on traffic in Flockton. The Cooper Bridge scheme, in whatever guise it is finally built, will undoubtedly have an effect upon traffic in and around Flockton. It will lead to an increase of traffic using Liley Lane. The possibility of a North Kirklees orbital road will not address the issues in Flockton. It will not reduce the need for a Flockton bypass. Moreover, it is far from clear that this will ever be built, as the West Yorkshire Combined Authority see it not as ready or facing significant barriers. So the main issue facing this council, in my opinion, is not is this worth doing, it is how do we make it happen. There are funding streams available from central government, both in the major roads network funding, but also earlier this summer, the Department for Transport has released £348 million specifically for projects to reduce congestion on major roads. We need to be having discussions between the Kirklees Cabinet with ward councillors and the West Yorkshire Combined Authority to look into the ways in which we could build a consensus among various different stakeholders to firstly commission a feasibility study and then to actually start building the thing. To do this, all we need is agreement from the members present in this chamber that we will work towards a common goal together. We already have a huge amount of support from the community in Flockton, as you already heard this evening, and beyond. We've spoken with councillors and residents from neighbouring areas within the Wakefield City region who are supportive. We have cross-party support from prospective parliamentary candidates from the Conservative Party and current Labour MPs for both Dewsbury and Wakefield. One of our own Labour councillors joined Councillor Taylor and I at a recent demonstration which was covered on the local television news. So my final point is a plea to all members of council. We know that there is a case for this bypass to be built. We know that it will be a challenge to gain both the necessary approvals and funding to do so. But please, can we work together to make it happen? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McBride.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we're all aware that there is a serious problem here, as in many other places. The saga of the Flockton bypass continues, notwithstanding numerous efforts since 1974 to respond to the pinch point which this represents. In 1998, traffic calming was introduced and signals were upgraded. In the last 6 years, various measures have been introduced to manage speeds and improve local safety, including a new zebra crossing and modification to signing and lining on the approach and through the village. The narrow footways and proximity of heavy vehicles makes it feel unsafe to walk in the footways, but the perception of danger is not reflected in the accident figures. Nonetheless, the perception and fears are relevant. Last year, at this time, I visited residents and representatives of the parish together with our most senior highway safety officer. Subsequently, we agreed to introduce a 20-mile-an-hour zone, to re-advertise the weight restrictions, make all signs more visible, and review all signage following police recommendations. Most recently, we are reviewing the impact of the 20-mile-an-hour zone. With regard to more significant measures, a scheme was submitted in 2014 as part of the West Yorkshire Transport Fund. It was rejected by Region as insufficient in benefits by comparison with other schemes in Kirklees and West Yorkshire. A similar scheme was submitted to Transport for the North a couple of years later for inclusion in the preferred list of projects, again rejected for similar reasons. We did consider Flockton with regard to the more recent Pinch Points Fund, but the Department of Transport wouldn't allow it to be considered. So in short, for the future, we can only seize on funding opportunities which will always be measured by comparison with comparable problems elsewhere, both within Kirklees and within West Yorkshire. Meantime, remedial action will be smaller scale and localised, reviewing existing measures. This is not a statement of indifference, it's a statement of just being honest. Certainly prepared to work with the parish, certainly prepared to work with fellow councillors in the district, but within the resources and the availability of funding that we have, we will do what we can. And I think we're really genuinely trying.
Thank you, Councillor McBride. Right, we've only got another 5 minutes left because we've already used 10 minutes, and I know we've got quite a few speakers, and I won't be able to bring you in. So we'll just have one more, and if it gets to 7 o'clock, I'll have to stop and go to agenda 15. Yeah. Okay, is that okay?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm afraid the cat's come before the horse a little bit here. I will not say over much. The good people of Flockton have heard some 85 years of talk. It's now time for action. Not platitudes, not sympathy, not condescension, not empty hand-wringing. Real and meaningful action is the only thing that will suffice. This debate is not about what some people in Flockton want. It's about what the village needs. There's broad cross-party agreement that the traffic problem in Flockton is dire and action is overdue. We have support from the Labour MPs of Dewsbury and Wakefield. There is support representing all shades of political opinion from Sitlington, Denbydale and Kirkburton parish councils. The 3 Kirkburton ward members, myself included, are fully supportive. Indeed, Mr Mayor, the only conspicuous lack of support for action in Flockton emanates from this administration. I do not suggest that there is an easy or cheap solution to Flockton's problems. If there was, then I have no doubt that it would have been found and implemented long ago. Our predecessors were not stupid. They saw these issues clearly. Nonetheless, they repeatedly failed to act effectively. It looks to me as if the political will to tackle this difficult problem has for long been missing. I know that there are some who believe that this route or that one for a bypass would inconvenience them personally. I know that there are fears that traffic problems in the Wakefield villages adjacent to Flockton could be exacerbated. It will be necessary to negotiate the best possible settlement of the different perspectives. It's a regional, not merely a Kirklees issue. It goes cross-border. With this in mind, I say it is time for this administration to channel the sentiments of late President Kennedy. We choose to do these things not because they are easy, but because they are hard. The easy choice for this council is to do nothing, to let the people of Flockton continue to stew in a fog of traffic fumes, to leave the children to struggle to school alongside a dangerously overcrowded road, to insist that the villagers continue to live amidst a never-ending stream of traffic. That's the easy thing. The hard choice is to actually do something to tackle the problem. I'm with President Kennedy on this one. We need to do the hard thing. Without political direction from Cabinet and ultimately this Council, Kirklees officers are hamstrung. They can see the problems but are powerless to act without Cabinet approval. They cannot make plans without a clear directive from Cabinet. It's a very old but nonetheless very true adage that failing to plan is planning to fail. Well, the time has come now for this council to start planning to succeed in solving the traffic problem which is Flockton. Will the leader or his deputy now give the council a firm assurance that officers will immediately be mandated to begin researching the necessary plans? I know they can't do them overnight. Will Cabinet begin work forthwith on preparing a bid for funding for a Flockton bypass? Will they, Mr Mayor? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Almer. So, thank you very much for everybody's contribution. We'll go to item 15 now. Key discussion topic this evening is will be on children's services. The Council will receive a presentation from Mel Meggs, Director of Children's Services, prior to the key discussion debate.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you about some of the recent developments in children's services. It's really appreciated that you are interested and to hear about some of the experiences that we've had recently. Okay. Can everybody hear me? I'm not sure if is it working? Where am I going? Sorry, technology. No. Maybe I shouldn't take it. There we go. Okay, so what I wanted to do tonight was to give you the headlines, and I know that we're pressed for time, but the headlines from our recent Ofsted inspection. And I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that we're doing in children's services to ensure that the children of Kirklees receive outstanding children's services, not just in children's social care, but wherever they are in the council. Okay, so first, you will know all too well around the Ofsted inspection process, because you will have been through that many times for children's services. So just to remind you that it's part of a national framework, and that framework says that it's designed to raise standards. So the regulator has set up a range of tests and measures that they want to experience in children's services and see, and they come into different local authorities and they test those. They said it's a 2-week inspection, and that the first week of that inspection they call week 0. And only in Ofsted, I think, can you have a week 0. So actually it's a 3-week inspection, where the first week is data gathering. They develop some key lines of inquiries, ask us for a huge amount of documentation. They interview people like the chief exec and the lead member, and myself. So there's lots of work done, they're just not on site with us. And then they have 2 weeks where they come in and not like the old inspections, where we would put lots of people and partners to talk to Ofsted about the types of work that we do. This inspection is completely focused on cases. So whilst they're with us, they look at hundreds of children's cases, so that take them right from the first referral or the first contact that we have, right the way through to the finish of our work with them. They look at our partners' work and our work and assess, firstly, whether we are meeting the regulations, so whether we are compliant with what our guidance says and what the law says, and then make a judgment about the impact of our work and what that has on outcomes for children. So the impact part's really important. So we don't have an opportunity as managers. I think I had 2 opportunities to talk to them. And the rest of the time they give us some feedback, but actually they didn't want to hear from us. What they wanted to do was spend time out there in teams looking at children's cases. So that was the nature of the inspection. It is supposed to be a more rounded inspection than previous inspection regimes, and supposed to focus much more about outcomes for children and less on process. And I think I think we experienced a bit of both. I think Ofsted are in a position changing and evolving themselves, and I think sometimes they still, lots of the discussions we had about them were still about process rather than outcomes for children. So we're working as a sector with Ofsted to try and think about, well, what does a good outcome framework look like? So it was fairly intensive, and I can report that the workforce, I have to say, did really, really well. They managed to, because of course, whilst the inspectors are here, interviewing, looking at hundreds of cases, we still have to get on with our day job. We still have to provide support to children and families every day. And I think it's of a credit to the workforce that we were able to do that. So our performance data, how many visits we saw children, what we did on those visits did not drop during the inspection process. And I think that's testimony to the passion that our staff feel for making a difference to Kirklees children. So our observations, it was lengthy and exhausting. I think out of all of it, I think, and in comparison, because lots of people were here at the last inspection and this one, and as you will know, that was quite a painful experience for people. So we had a lot of work to do around supporting staff to remain engaged in the inspection progress and to get over what is often quite a traumatising experience for people. So we did quite a bit of work around that. Staff were really happy to tell their stories to the inspectors, warts and all, because I don't think we'd ever said that we were perfect. we knew that we were still work in progress, and we had some debate about how close to good were we. And I think we'll still be having that debate for some time, I think. Okay. Oh, wrong way. So, the really important thing that they said to us, I think, was that Kirklees have achieved steady progress in strengthening the foundations for sustainable service improvement. And I will take steady progress for sustainable improvement over quick fixes that fall apart the minute you walk away from them. So for us, that steady service improvement was really important. Having and laying, and that's what you've done, we've done collectively, is lay the foundations for potentially for getting to outstanding are in place. And as a result, and I think this is the sentence that frightened everybody last time, and I think is the thing that we should be really proud of. There are no widespread or serious failures that leave children at risk of harm. And I think the first thing that I want to say is, and I think one of the lead inspector was on the inspection team previously. Inspection team previously found over 100 children, they thought, that were at risk and needed immediate support. They didn't find one child this time who we needed to, we call it the get your coat, go out there, do something now to protect that child. So there wasn't one child in that circumstance. There were lots of children they asked questions about and probed us and just wanted to check out about what our intentions were about their outcomes. So there was lots of testing of that information, but they didn't find a child there. And whilst the report doesn't always represent the rich things, so we met with them every day and they gave us feedback every day. So we had hours of really rich feedback. And so they described a solid front door. And we know that if we make a good decision first, at the first point when we work with children, then we make good decisions in the future. That first bit of the work that we do is really important. So they talked about a solid front door, solid social work practice. They even said that one social worker's practice and described it as beautiful. That's not quite a language that we associate Ofsted inspectors with, but they did. So that social worker particularly was over the moon, I think, is probably, head is still trying to get through the door, I think, because everyone knows her now as the beautiful social worker. So, but it's really important, I think, that we use some of that language because it's a really difficult job, and when someone gets that sort of praise from an Ofsted inspector, it's really important to recognise that. They, particularly, I think, for you, they found that progress had been achieved through increased corporate commitment, and that means you. So that's the things that you've done over the past few years collectively to try and create an environment where great social work practice can thrive. And all of you will have played at some point a part in that, and I think it's really important to acknowledge that. They acknowledge the investment that you've made, the money that we've spent at times when it's really difficult to invest in services. They acknowledge the value that had. They said they found clear and focused leadership, strengthened partnerships. They actually talked about the fact that we'd repaired our partnerships, that when they spoke to and had contact with other people like the Senior Family Court Judge and others, they talked about what good partners we'd become. And I think, again, that's about us setting a context and expectations about our workforce, that we don't protect children if we don't work in partnership. They particularly liked our duty and advice team, which is multi-agency in its nature. And they found huge workforce stability. So I think when they came before, we had a lot of agency staff. And I'd like to, if nobody hands their notice in between now and the end of September, by the beginning of October, when our new staff, the next group of staff start, we will have no agency staff in children's social work. And there aren't many local authorities that are able to say that. And we have a lot of competing neighbours who want those. So no social workers, no team managers, no service managers, no heads of service, and the assistant director, the service director. They're all permanent and committed to Kirklees and committed to Kirklees children. We should be really thrilled about that. Our view is, and the agreement we've had with our workforce, that apart from in a couple of areas, emergency duty service, and a couple of other areas, we're probably going to go to a no agency staff ever policy. And our staff are saying actually having agency staff coming in and out is harder work than just picking up a couple of extra cases yourself. So we'll keep that under review, but that's some dialogue that we're having with the workforce. They'd rather manage the work themselves with people who work restoratively, who know how we do things in Kirklees, than have lots of staff in and out. So I think that's a testimony again to the strength of our workforce. So we're really, really proud about that. And finally, they found that children who need help and protection are now recognised and that the risk of significant harm is quickly responded to. And in fact, in some areas, and when you read the report, one of the things we're particularly proud of, and you don't get in a lot of reports, they said, particularly in these new areas of safeguarding that we've all been talking about, whether that's around teenagers and at risk of either criminal or sexual exploitation, they could see the impact of our work reduced harm to those teenagers. And again, nationally, it's really important. We're still finding the right ways to ensure that we work appropriately. And that bears out, if you remember the earlier conversations we had around Dr. Peel's and the National Working Group's report into the quality of social work around those areas today. So Ofsted have triangulated that information and seen some very, very good work for there. But always. As you know, but they did find that we still required improvement to be good. And I have to say again, testimony to the workforce who are really disappointed with that outcome. Not necessarily because they thought that everything they did was perfect, but because they think the children of Kirklees deserve good and outstanding services. And I think that gives us a really good launch pad to move on to outstanding. So they felt we were required improvement in all areas, and I'll tell you the particular things that they thought that we needed to develop. So there was an issue around quality of recording, assessments and child protection investigations. Not that we didn't recognise those things, but it was that could we have done something a bit earlier? And one of the things that we know about restorative practice, and one of the things they said is when a referral comes in, sometimes we only focus on what that's asking us to do. So when it says we're worried about this child and we're worried in this area, when we do our assessment, when we start that piece of work, we assess against the thing that's been referred for rather than taking a much wider view. But that when we stay involved and work very quickly, because we build good relationships, because we're restorative in our approach with children and families, we very quickly do those wider work. So the issue for them is how do we make sure that we get that right from the beginning of the process rather than later on. They talked about the quality of our children in need, child protection and care plans. Just needed to be smarter. There's something about how we describe what we're going to try and achieve. In my view, I think we use too much jargon, and we're just going to do a bit of a campaign about language matters to try and take some of the jargon out of the work we do so children and families understand much better what it is that we're trying to achieve. We didn't always put a time frame on, so when did we want something achieved by? That's clearly something that's easy to fix. And then the other thing is, and always with these things, that we have to have contingency plans. So if this approach that we're taking with this child doesn't work, what's our backup plan? If it all goes pear-shaped, if this arrangement doesn't work with the family, let's have a very clear articulated backup plan. And I accept that. I think that was relevant for Ofsted to say. The response to disabled children needs to improve, and we agreed with that, and we told Ofsted that. We know that that's the case. We've had a review of that team. We've changed the way that they work, and we're starting to see some of the benefits, but they just hadn't seen enough benefits when Ofsted came in. Children in private fostering arrangements. So those children, they saw 3 children in private fostering arrangements where we'd used the wrong set of regulations to regulate their conditions. The children were safe, they were being well cared for, we knew about them. But we were using the wrong set of regulations. We now know the right set of regulations, and we've retrained our workforce, offered more guidance, and we're going to be doing some work around private fostering just to remind schools and GPs, who are often the first people to identify children who are living in those circumstances, around that. And then the children at risk from professionals was that we needed a better safety net when our LADO, for those of you, our local authority designated officer, goes on holiday. And so what the arrangement is now, where they go on holiday, someone covers the work and the LADO reviews the work when they come back, and they wanted us to put a different type of arrangement in. So again, easily fixed, something that we can put right. They felt that management oversight of the service that whilst we did know our children and we knew what was going on, that our performance and quality assurance arrangements were still developing, I think was the word that they used. And given that we had a new case management system, the real issue for us is that we have to do a lot of work to make sure, cleanse the data before we can know what's going on in the system. And I think they mentioned in the report that we're spending too much time doing that. And so we've already quickly got someone to come in and have a look at how we can improve and move that quicker. So that was really about, can we rely on the performance information that's being provided to us? And is the system giving us what we need so we can very quickly understand what's going on? So we've got a plan of work around that. And then they felt that the regular supervision of social workers that's reflective and directive, interesting word, directive, because they're independent, regulated professionals. So we might direct around timescales and compliance, but I've not seen that in anyone else's report, so I'm going to be talking to Ofsted about what do they mean by directive. But we do know that where we see poor practice, we've got to be quicker at challenging it and making sure that we've got good safety nets in place, that poor practice doesn't have an impact on children. So I'm absolutely comfortable with that. Okay. So, as I said to you, so we were disappointed with RI. But disappointed in a way that's motivating rather than demotivating. So people were coming out going, do you know what? Actually, we'll have none of this getting to good. Next time they come in, we really want to. And that was coming from our workforce. We want to be outstanding. So we're going to do a number of things. We're going to keep on with the unrelenting focus on practice, but we're not just going to do that in children's social care. We're going to be looking at SEND, and we're going to be looking at learning services. So wherever we provide direct support to children and their families, we're going to have a much more unified practice. And that includes in other parts of the council. So there are other people in the council that work with children and young people, and we've got to be much more, we'll do some work around making sure that that's there. We want to keep our stable workforce. You cannot ever achieve good or outstanding if you don't have a stable workforce. One of the things they test us against is number of changes of social workers. If we're going to do restorative practice as a council, we have to maintain relationships. We need a workforce who stay with us. We are looking at how we spend our money and making sure, and our aspiration is to spend less on children's social care and more on early help. And we're working on a plan that says safely how we might take money out of the high cost element of the system and make sure we have more early help services. And we're starting that with some youth provision. And we'll be coming back to Cabinet and bringing proposals forward that put a range of new earlier intervention and early help services in place. But we can only do that when we're safe in the knowledge that we have enough money to spend on those children that need a statutory social work service. So we're going to do that carefully. We're going to have a medium-term plan over 3 to 5 years where we start to do those things. We're going to work much better in place. And we're going to talk to social workers about how they contribute to that work, how they are seen in a community, how they can start to have conversations in community, which is not just about, I'm going to be over here just doing child protection and everybody else does this. We're going to be thinking about what their contribution is, and they can some. We're going to need to put some extra capacity in because we need to pick up speed with some of the transformation work that we're doing. So we are going to put and are putting extra capacity in so that we've probably got another 2 years before Ofsted are back for a big inspection. They might even be back in a year for a shorter 2-day inspection. We can't rest on our laurels. We really need to pick up pace. So we're going to put some stuff in there. Our performance assurance programme and, of course, the important role that scrutiny plays around support and challenge. The government have told us that they will now lift their formal statutory intervention notice, but they do want to, and they set us 2 tests. They said, can you deliver the minimum requirements for children's safeguarding, and can you sustain any improvements that you make? So we've passed the first test, and we're now agreeing what the measures are to prove that we as organisations and collective as partners can sustain the improvements that we've made. So we will continue to work with Leeds on some measures about what does that look like and how might the government get assurance that we are a fit and proper organisation who can deliver high quality services to children. And we're committed to that. Okay, wrong way. So, There are 3 areas of work, and we know when we're talking to to you in scrutiny or in other areas, we're going to have 3 improvement plans. We're going to do some work around, obviously, continue to improve children's social care and early help, making them work together. We are going to develop a Kirklees learning challenge. We need to get better educational outcomes, reduce the educational outcome gap, and we need to transform the experience of children with special educational needs. And they're the 3 areas that we'll be focusing over the next 3 years. Okay. And finally, I think I wanted to end as I started by saying a thank you to all of you, because you have all played in some part a role in enabling us moving away from where we're at, giving us a climate where we think we can get the best chance to deliver great outcomes. So thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Are there any questions, comments from the members of the...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will avoid looking at the screens if I can, because that out-of-sync speech is really putting me off. So I'm going to look at all of you, if you don't mind. I'm pleased in the outcome of Ofsted. I'm delighted and impressed by the workforce we have, by our partners, by the work that's gone on to this point in time. I don't think at the beginning any of us really realised how far down we were and what needed to be done. And that challenge, I think, has been absolutely met. And it's impressive that the improvements that have been achieved so far within the timescale that we've had. And that's down to all the officers involved, absolutely and utterly, our frontline workers, our directors, our managers, and with the participation and support from the Leeds DCS, our partners, and the Commissioner, Eleanor Brazil, who I loved working with, but it was a wonderful day when we were told we didn't need a Commissioner anymore and I could wave a bye-bye. The role of children and young people's scrutiny has also been vital, getting us so far, and is absolutely essential for the future if we're going to get where we intend to get. Would I have wanted a rating of good? Yes, of course I would. But realistically, this is a complicated system and it takes a long time to resolve and improve. The important thing for me is we know where we still need to improve, what we need to do, and we're on with it. And as you can tell, it's wonderful working with Mel. How good is she? But it's not only that, we are ambitious for our children, for our young people, for our care leavers. And I have to give enormous credit to the Corporate Parenting Board. By the way, Councillor Smith, oh, you've got your button pressed now, well done. I had to beat him off. The Corporate Parenting Board's come a long way. It now includes representatives of young people, foster carers network, who tell us about what things are going on, issues that we should address. And there's a watching brief for the Chair of Scrutiny, which I very much welcome. I am particularly impressed by members of the board who've risen to a challenge. We asked them to take on the challenge at looking at particular aspects of children's services, and each and every one of them has taken on a role. It's early days yet, but that is such a big change and is so impressive. One of the interesting things is in the work programme going forward, directors are being invited individually to come to corporate parenting to tell us what all their services do for corporate parenting, but also what more they can do. And that will be interesting and take us forward further. Which leads me, fellow corporate parents, all of you, to present you with a little bit of a challenge here and now. The first one of which is about foster carer recruitment. If each one of us encouraged, supported someone to start inquiring about foster care, that would be massive. You know, could be 69 new foster carers if each of us did one. And The immediate thing that people say to me, and they say, I've been considering foster care, but I couldn't cope with passing a child on. And I absolutely get and understand that. But foster care is a broad range of stuff. One of our main aims is for people to long-term foster. Some people even do staying put past the age of 18. It's like the rest of us. They can't shake off their children, but good stuff. But other people provide emergency care. They provide short-term respite breaks. There are all sorts of things. And, you know, if you were doing a short break with a child and then we're handing them back to their parents who come out of hospital, how good would that feel? There is real rewards in foster carers, but I do want people to be foster carers for Kirklees. None of this going anywhere else to private companies, so make sure you get that right. The other thing around that, if each and every one of us promoted foster carer recruitment events to our communities, to our contacts, to get more people just going and talking about it, that would be really, really such a help, not only to this authority, a boost to foster care, but a help to our children and young people who need those foster carers. And I will be, tomorrow morning, you'll be getting an email from me, all of you, with some links that I'll tell you about later. So that's one challenge, that conversation with as many people as you can about foster care. The second one is about supporting our young people, children and young people. If each and every one of us used our contacts with businesses, voluntary organisations, other organisations, to raise the issue about the need for opportunities for work experience, for Saturday jobs, part-time jobs, particularly those children who aren't yet care leavers but moving towards it, and of course apprenticeships. Those conversations are really, really important, and I would ask you all to consider and think about how you can do that. That would help our young people to develop, gain confidence and strengthen their pathway into life. And the third challenge, because you get it in threes, is about getting it right for our children and young people. Some of you, perhaps not me, will remember as when you were young, you didn't want to be different from anybody else of your age group. You wanted to be different from the adults. You know, I was in miniskirts and beehive hairstyles, but there we are. But you wanted to be the same as everybody else. And it is the same for looked after children and for care leavers. But they find that they're not the same. They end up having to explain themselves and their story. Some things they can do, some things they can't do because of the situation they're in. And if each and every one of us would look for opportunities with organisations, voluntary groups, community groups, for them to have opportunities to come together. Because one of the things I'll be sending you tomorrow is a link to a little animation which the Corporate Parenting Board have already seen. Forgive me if you've seen it again. But it's developed by a group called Adopt Teens. They are young people who are adopted, but they also experience foster care, and they talk about that. And one of the things they say is...
Councillor Kendrick, we haven't timed you, but I think we've nearly 5 minutes. The
you
clock
just
is
hold on.
Hold
on.
Clock is not working on this side, so you're trying to get the advantage.
I know what you're doing. The one thing they talk about is getting together as a group of looked after or care experienced young people is really important. So important to them to have that safe environment where they don't have to explain themselves. So opportunities for activities, funding for activities, opportunities to do things are absolutely vital. And I'll be asking each of you to do that. So 3 challenges. Get a conversation going about foster care. Find contacts to provide some work experience or more. And find opportunities for funding and for our children to get together. I really would like, Mr Mayor,
Thank you, Councillor
you and others to be boring.
We want to give a bit of time to everybody else. We haven't got much time, so thank you. Thank you for your contribution. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I'd like to just join in what Councillor Kendrick's just said. I fully support the three challenges you gave us. I've said before, and I will say again, that children's services is probably the most important thing that this council does, and all 69 of us are corporate parents. It's something I'm really passionate about, and it's not because I sit on the scrutiny panel or the corporate parenting board. It's not because I've got a shadow cabinet responsibility for it. It's because I believe that we have to look after vulnerable children. And thanks to Mel for the report. It was very informative. It gave us a lot of positives, and I know there are still things that we need to look at, but if you look at where we've come from, and I see those reports, and I sit on the boards and the scrutinies with Councillor Kendrick, and I've got access to people in offices, and including Mel, yourself, and my feeling is that we're going in the right direction, and my feeling is that we've got the right people doing the leading, so tribute to Mel, really, if I'm honest. I think my kids are quite lucky in some ways. They've got two parents who love them very dearly. They've got grandparents who love them. And, you know, it should be like that for all children, actually. But unfortunately, it's not. So having sat on adoption panels and witnessed some of the life story books that we get to read and the documents, the reams of documents that come with these children when they come to adoption panels, you see that some children have a very poor start in life, and it's very sad to see. And we have a chance to influence that with our responsibilities as councillors involved in these various bodies. And I think it's very important that we take that responsibility seriously. It affects the kids for the rest of their life, not just emotionally, but it affects them educationally, it affects them in terms of work prospects, it affects their interactions with the criminal justice system, it affects every aspect of their lives, and as other people have said, it's sometimes a stigma that that they could do without having been a looked after child, and you know, I could go on and on really. Fostering and adoption is an area that we do need to support. I think that when we get the email tomorrow, I think we should all take that responsibility seriously. I think we should think about how we can talk to people that we know and businesses that we may interact with, groups that we may interact with. And it's not right for everyone, and it shouldn't be right that someone looks at doing this if it's not right for them, because then you will compound the problem. But there might be people out there who are suitable for this kind of activity and could offer a really good environment for a child, but never really considered it. So we need to push that. We need to continue to improve children's services. We're going in the right direction, but I'd like to say to Mel that if you could continue to interact with the whole chamber, I know that you do a really good job with the Corporate Parenting Board and with the scrutiny panels. We see a lot of stuff. We get access to a lot of stuff, and you know, I'll continue to ask challenging questions because that's what I'm interested in. But I also think it's important that when you see good things happening, you recognise that good things are happening. And as a shadow cabinet member, I think it's important that sometimes you say to people in the cabinet that you think they're doing a good job. And I'd like to say that to Councillor Kendrick. I think that we work together on things like this, and it's important that we do. We show that, you know, the issues are important to, I'm sure, the share between us. So I don't think there is a lot else to say really, other than keep up the good work and how important it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Homewood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the report. It was really encouraging to see the progress that we're making. Just in the interest of kind of thinking about how we can improve and things that we can do, I just wanted to mention a few things that I'm interested in and that I've picked up in my ward and some of the challenges that we see and feed that in. 3 things really. The first was just about how we tackle criminal grooming, so grooming into criminal gangs as well as into sexual exploitation. Obviously, as we all know, there's a challenge in Huddersfield and across the district around gangs, knife crime and violence, etc. And I am concerned about that and vulnerable children, especially in my own ward, who are potentially falling into that trap of being groomed into crime. And I know how difficult it is with county lines, etc., and cross-border, people being pulled across borders and so on. So I know that having had previous discussions, it's something that we're focused on, and we have teams looking at that and people looking at that. I'm just interested in sort of continue to understand how we're progressing with that, how many children actually we're intervening in that sort of situation. Because whilst I understand that as a council we're looking at that, I feel that it's the type of issue, there's a more of a prevalent attitude across the wider community that we might have seen with sexual exploitation, that, well, these children are involved in crime, it's their own fault sort of thing, and I'm just very conscious of that. The second thing I just wanted to mention was just around how we support some of our voluntary organisations with things like safeguarding. Recently in our ward we've been doing a lot of I don't know what the right word is, but bringing together some of our partners in schools, particularly in voluntary organisations, to make sure that they're getting that right connection between social services, so they know where to go, they know how to report things in, and they're following the right procedures, both in terms of social services and through to the gang strategy as well. One of the things that just struck me is, especially given the amount of cuts that have been to youth services, that we've had a lot of voluntary organisations that have stepped in to fill that gap. Some of them, of course, have got great experience in dealing with those sorts of things, but I presume that others don't necessarily. And obviously as well, they're a great, they can be quite useful as well in terms of how they get that message across to children, to make sure that they're telling a responsible adult when there is issues as well. And I know some of them in my own ward do some really great work in that. So I'd just be interested to know maybe what we do, could we do more, where we've got new groups springing up and running youth clubs, etc. How do we get them tap into that and get them to the right place? And then the final thing I just wanted to mention was just about unregulated children's homes that's been in the news quite a lot recently. For those 16 and over, I believe there's sort of a loophole in the law which allows them to be placed in children's homes which are unregulated. My understanding is that as an authority we don't place children in those homes, but I know in my own ward we've had at least one occasion where there has been one of those homes in the area, and it's caused some difficulties. And I do know that, certainly I've seen that the council officers, along with the police, did do everything they could to intervene in that case, and it's difficult because it's not illegal. But I'd just be interested to know maybe what we can do to discuss that with other authorities, maybe at a political level as well, Viv, because do elected members in those areas understand what's happening? Because I have a concern that, yes, those children might not be our responsibility, but they're living in our area, and we want to make sure that they're safe and do the right thing. So it was just really how we can tackle that and get wider understanding of how to resolve that problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Homewood. Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Mel and the team, for that report. Very valuable and very encouraging. Very, very encouraging. Before I make my comments, though, I have to say a couple of words about the key discussion and the format it comes in. I just have to. Or the lack of it. We've made much play about making council a better place to debate, and about making it more inclusive to all members, and about getting as many views as possible in this chamber. Now, I'm getting bored of listening to myself saying this, so it must be driving everybody else crackers. But can we please have the supporting documents and reports with the key discussion? Please, pretty please. We've been asking for this for quite some time, and I was told it was supposed to happen this council, yet here we are. Can we take a note today and make an agenda item for the next but one pre-council CEO's meeting, that we can have this confirmed before the council agenda goes to print? Back to the report. Kirklees' responses to the report, posted online, shows that from the inadequate rating of 2016, we've improved significantly, and that's just been displayed again in the report today. Social workers know their children well. There's good engagement with families. In cases of domestic abuse and issues of protection, continuous progress has been made. Number 11 is described as a high-quality resource for care leavers. And I think we can praise Mel and our senior managers, as well as our social workers, for the huge effort and goodwill that has been shown on their part for the improvements in practice and working climate. I'm especially impressed today with the steps made towards agency staff and actually sort of reducing that almost to zero in the future. That's really, really heartening news. We're still requiring improvement though. In conversations and in committees, I'm reassured that there's a factor of maturing outcomes. So we've put something in place recently and in 12 months, once those are bedded in, they will produce further results. The Ofsted inspection came at a point where those results weren't forthcoming just yet. A little bit further down the line, and we would have been a bit further on again. That's understood. There are things from the report, though, from the report itself that need more work. Our understanding of children who go missing needs to be improved, especially the reasons of why, and making sure that return home interviews are good quality. And this is from the report itself, not from the Kirklees response. So, life story work is really valuable for young people as they get older. It's something we put in, I remember at adoption panel, we put in a lot of emphasis for adopters. So it's only right that as corporate parents we do that for ourselves as well, and we really, really develop life stories for people as they're growing. Quality assurance as a means to improve performance and good management oversight, vitally important if we want to get to where we need to be. Councillor Kendrick has been portfolio holders. We've seen these improvements and we've supported her as we can and appreciate the amount of work that's been put in. As part of the corporate parenting board, we've been particularly active. As you said, we're really wanting to support that. And I think what I've finished with is the challenge is there, and the challenge is to all of us, officers, members, leaders and backbenchers. Make yourselves aware, get involved. It's all very well to ask Mel to come to us. We need to go to her. We need to go to the service. If you're in a party of government, I would add, lobby for adequate financing, adequate for that financing to come forth. We've put £5 million over the last, 18 months, 2 years, something like that, into these improvements. That money still needs to be on tap. So if you're in a party of government, lobby for us. If you're in a party of government, if you're not in such a party but you're going to be, don't forget us. I'm going to leave that there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. Councillor Pando.
Even better space. But let me just remind members the journey we've been on in the last two or three years. I've just made some notes here. We were inundated with agency staff. There were so many agency staff that we didn't know who and, it was just crazy. Instability, that's the understatement. It was completely unstable. It was chaos, to be honest with you. And that's a polite way of putting it. The data we were collecting was a massive issue, and that's what actually raised the issue when Councillor Erin Hill was at the helm, and she identified very early doors that we've got a big issue around data, and that was before we got the inspectors here. And the overall capacity of the organisation was actually with a big question mark, so that didn't help. And the strategic leadership we see now with both Mel and the chief exec wasn't there in terms of a leader for children's services. And that then had an impact on staff morale, which was actually a very low. And that sounds bad enough, but to me and many members in this room, the children were at risk. The children that we're here to serve were at risk, and that was the thing that actually, did it for me, that, no child should be at risk. And I'm really, really pleased that the inspectors picked that up, that no child is at risk. So that's the journey we've been on. And that journey has been completely transformed into something really, really positive. And I'm confident that when they come again, we will be outstanding, but we can't rest our laurels on that. We built solid foundations, and that's what you mentioned, Mel. That them solid foundations are so important, and that journey is so important that we actually learn the lessons. And because this agenda is so massive and it's changing so fast, we need to keep on top of that. And we need to accept that challenge. Councillor Smith, I completely appreciate what you said, that we need to be challenged and we need to accept that, we need to learn and we need to move on. And that will only create more stability. And again, to hear what you just said, that the agency staff are non-existent, that is so good. And this is a place to come and work for, which again is so good. A few years ago, that wasn't the case. And the last thing you said, which probably links to the wide issue around the youth provision, which James alluded to around crime and gangs and grooming, that is a worrying trend. So if we can actually safely remove our resources from where they are at the moment, and in an intelligent way to actually put that back into youth services, that would be such a big improvement, because that's actually seen over the horizon in terms of what the challenges are that we are seeing. And it would be wrong for me not to mention Eleanor Brazil, the commissioner who, when she came here, I was terrified, but when you actually got to know her, right, yeah, she was a brilliant woman and brilliant commissioner, and she actually basically, right, yeah, took us through that journey. And once again, she worked with Erin really closely, and my previous, the previous leader, and both myself and Viv, and also with other leaders. So huge thanks to Eleanor Brazil. She was brilliant. Leeds City Council, they partnered with us at a time when there was a massive risk for them. And at the same time, very early doors, they came for, they had an inspection, and, they were being nervous that, because of the inspection that they were getting, because where we were and all the issues we were facing, would that pull them down? But it didn't. It actually turned out that they actually got an outstanding result, which actually boosted the organisation's morale, both here and in Leeds. And then Mel, you came along, helping Viv, who was doing a fantastic job anyway. But you then gave that strategic leadership to the organisation, which I really appreciate, and you turning the organisation around. And you sort of like bubbly personality, right? Yeah, actually generates all this stuff.
Thank you. About your 5 minutes.
Very, very quickly, Mr. Mayor. I've really finished.
Come on, we've got.
I also need to mention all the leaders.
Quickly.
The leaders were fantastic. We had troubled times around wider issue around CSE, and all the councillors that we've actually worked with. And without everybody in this council chamber pulling together, we would not have got the result we got. And I'm confident that the next report that we get and the next inspection we get will be outstanding. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pando. Councillor Hill.
In Ofsted, come they won't find any children who are immediately at risk. It would have been incredible. So I really can't overstate how pleased I am to hear and to have read some of the things in the Ofsted report as well, knowing as various members and yourself, Mel, alluded to, knowing where we were and where we've come from to get to a point. And that's not to understate how far I know you still want to travel and that we still got to go on the issues of further improvement that you've identified. But I really do want to stress that from my perspective, listening to that presentation tonight, it was incredible, and all credit to you and to the workforce as well. I think, and Councillor Pando just touched on this briefly, that one of the things that was and is incredibly difficult, both when we first started to identify some of these issues and then subsequently under the inadequate judgment, was that had quite rightly to become the overwhelming focus. So as a politician, and I know more widely, you're looking at that and it's difficult to lift your head above the parapet. Every single thing, all your capacity is devoted to the fact that you're working under this judgment, and everything's overshadowed by, well, what's it doing for our improvement journey? How does this contribute to our improvement journey? And if there isn't that direct link, then it's difficult to make the case for it. I think what I found really inspiring, I suppose, about your presentation was there was that sense of looking outward again, of saying, well, children's social care doesn't operate in a vacuum. These children are part of places, they are part of communities. We work across a partnership and starting to look and be a bit more proactive, I suppose, rather than just going, well, how will this help us directly improve it? And I think as an authority, that's a really good place for us to be. I think, again, sort of leading on from that, one of the things that I hope that will mean, because I particularly welcomed your focus on place-based working, because one of the things that, not to preempt a later discussion, but thinking about issues such as low pay, low income, multiple employment, some of the research that's been done is around families with children. Particularly the one that always sticks with me was a woman who worked very early in the morning, split shift, very late at night, and she saw her daughter for half an hour a day. And she was saying, you know, I know I'm letting her down. I know I'm letting her down in all sorts of ways. You know, I can't help her at school. I miss her. She misses me. We're at a point where, as a society, we've never known more about the importance of good attachment for children. But it seems as though we're moving as a society in a direction that that seems to counterbalance that. So I think it's really important that we start to look as an authority around that early intervention, prevention, turning the tap off. And as I say, one of the things that I do find really positive is that it feels as though we're in a position where we can start to do that, where we're not just solely focused on what will get us further from one day to the next. So again, I do think that where we've been to where we are now is incredible, and I'd like to add my thanks to members across the chamber, because it wouldn't have happened without a good deal of political collaboration as well as work within the service. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Councillor Hall, I'm only going to take Councillor Hall now because we've come up to nearly 60 minutes and we need to give a bit of time to Mel to respond to some of these questions. So, Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 3 points I'd like to make. The first 2 on safeguarding, and then another matter of children's services. Firstly, to associate myself with the points that have been made most eloquently already in this debate, we will continue to support Councillor Kendrick and the officers and the service in the improvement which I'm sure is to come. Safeguarding is never an easy issue, is it? I know I'm guilty at times when I have to read reports, seemingly endless reports on safeguarding as a governor and as a teacher and as a councillor. And I'm sometimes a bit guilty of thinking, I wish we didn't have to read all these blessed reports on safeguarding. But as a parent, I know that safeguarding has to be as good as it needs to be, and therefore if I've got to read another 100 reports, I shall read another 100 reports. So, you know, all strength to your hand in doing what you have to do. As well as a lot of hard work and determination on behalf of the officers, this has also been achieved by a very large injection of money. Several, in fact, many millions of pounds over the past 2 years. So just one question, which is, will we be seeing that now absorbed into the base budget for adult services, or will any of that drop out? That's perhaps I'm seeing you nodding there, will perhaps to be addressed in the budget. My next issue of safeguarding is in response to a comment which I have heard tonight, which was given by a member of the public, who said that we should expect on Friday that school fire alarms be set off in schools and in public buildings. I am extremely concerned about that, very, very concerned. I would hope that someone high up, maybe yourself or even the Chief Executive, will communicate with all schools and all public buildings for which we are responsible to stress the importance to human life of those systems and that they should be used properly and responsibly. My third point on children's services is about the Almonbury School. You would expect that as a councillor who represents a ward which is not contiguous with Almonbury, that I've taken rather a watching brief on this rather than have direct involvement with it. But in the conversations I've had with ward members and with parents of children of that school, it does seem to me now that this is almost transforming from what was a local matter to the parents in Almonbury to rather a borough-wide scandal. We have heard tonight from parents, we have heard that children are without priority admissions areas. We have heard that schools are blocking applications from certain parents. We have heard of an utter disregard from what would be considered a sufficient consultation with parents. And the upshot of this, and the message which the Cabinet seems to be giving to the parents of Almonbury, is don't worry, because we can allocate you a school that is more than an hour's walking distance away and which has recently been assessed by Ofsted as inadequate. That, to me, is no way that we should be treating these parents in Almonbury. I have to say that the more I I look into this, I could rarely seen such a botched operation as we've seen from the Cabinet on this issue. They have had the opportunity to rethink this. They've had the opportunity to slow the process. They have had the opportunity to take further suggestions, and these have been ignored. The deadline for applications is rapidly approaching, the 31st of October. Bear in mind that the decision these parents will be making on behalf of their children is one of the most important that we'll ever make, which is which school I'm going to send my child to. And we have had from Councillor Patterson tonight a rather unreassuring quote, never mind, catchments will be available by the 31st of October. If I was a parent, that doesn't give me any reassurance whatever that the Cabinet actually knows what's going on in this issue. I have to say, if I were Councillor Pandor, I would convene a private meeting of the Cabinet this week with senior officers, first of all on a damage limitation exercise.
Councillor Hall, 30 seconds.
Thank you. And secondly, to try and find a way out of the utter mess they have created in this part of Kirklees. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mel?
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to start. So thank you for the comments that you've had around, particularly around our youth provision. I wanted to talk a little bit, I think I mentioned about the work we've been doing around gangs and criminal exploitation. For some of you, you'll know that this summer we felt it was really important to get out there and start to build relationships with young people, meeting them on the streets. We've had 20 of our staff who have worked all the way through summer outside of their job descriptions, outside of their role profiles, who have volunteered, who have got detached youth work backgrounds out there meeting with. And I went to meet those workers last night, and they've had contact with over 800 young people over the summer period through the detached youth work sessions. And I went out to thank them because we actually had an incident last week where I think that one of them actually saved a young person's life from a very serious attack, which validates our reason for wanting more of our more youth workers and others out on the streets, engaging and talking to young people, finding them positive things to do. There was lots of stories last night from the youth workers, and we're going to evaluate this and come and share that, of them talking about how they were able to engage young people in all sorts of positive activities, and I think that's really important. We had our first meeting of our Youth Development Board yesterday, where we've agreed a programme that looks at places to go, building on, as you said, the third sector community capacity. Communities have stepped in, but young people are still telling us that they still do want places to go, so we're going to be doing some work around how do we build on and support communities to do that. How are we going to deliver some detached youth provision? There will be proposals coming forward, learning from what we've done over the summer. We also ran a healthy holidays programme over the summer. We're also just about to receive an evaluation report of that. I understand the numbers were incredibly high for that too, particularly trying to address some of the impacts of poverty, no free school meals over the summer, so we've been doing some work around that. And then in terms of criminal exploitation, at the moment we've got a range of different services that work, and we want to try and build a single service that's able to wrap around so that our young people have got places to go, people to talk to, and people who protect them. And that we move away from criminalisation and move more into a protection model of support for those young people much earlier. So we are doing some research with Huddersfield University that reports next month, and we have our second youth summit in November, where we're going to be making a range of proposals with all of the sectors to come together. So I'm hoping that by the end of the year we're going to have a new model, have new people in post out there engaging our young people and finding positive things to do. And I think that's using lots of evidence-based responses, working with communities. So hopefully that'll address some of your issues. In terms of the unregulated, so there are unregistered children's homes and unregulated, just because we like to complicate things. So unregulated children's homes are perfectly lawful. Because of the age group that they work with. We are lobbying as a national organisation, and we understand that there is some regulations that when we get some time in Parliament will be considered. to address some of these issues. And you'll know that I wrote to other local authorities who are placing young people here in that provision recently, to express my concern and ask them to review their arrangements for the care of those children. And I've also had conversations with directors who have placed children in our place, in the same way that I would expect them to do that to me if we placed anywhere else. So I think it is really important that we, where we have unregulated children's home provision, that we are working together with those host authorities. If the children live in our area, we have a responsibility. And so we are working with them. We have a notification process nationally, so we notify each other when we're placing children, so we're able to pick up some of those. But I do think there's some work to be done around the regulations. On registered children's homes, we should be reporting directly to Ofsted, so Ofsted can come out and take the appropriate enforcement action that they need to do. So again, if you understand that there's a children's home that's being opened anywhere around you, and we are a net importer of children, so we have more children living in Kirklees in the care of other authorities than we have in our own care. So if you are aware of that, then please do contact our service so that we can check out that it is a properly registered children's home and it's providing the appropriate levels of care. I think there was some work around getting, I think there was some comment about getting involved, and we're always happy and want people to get involved. I think there were some comments made about children and around the working poor. We've pulled together a children's partnership back together, and we're just about to put a plan in place, and the number one priority is how do we do work to try and reduce the impact of child poverty. So I'll look forward to lots more work around healthy schools programmes and other such things. So we'll be coming forward with a programme of work around trying to do that. The financial strategy, yes, the money. You'll know that we are developing a 3 to 5 year financial strategy, which hopes that we invest in things that will save us money. But what we'll do is have a programme where we need to make some reinvestment of those savings to keep demand low. We still have less children in care than our statistical neighbours do. So we're already making huge savings and avoiding costs in doing that. So we'll continue on that. The fire alarms, I didn't know about that, so thank you very much, and I'll be making some representation to let people know about that. And in terms of Almondbury, so we are working with the office and the two areas of central government who have got decisions to make about catchment areas. We are absolutely lobbying them. I know that my officers are on a daily basis contacting them and urging them to come to some decisions so that we can do that work with families. Our elected members are effectively making their positions known, and we are doing as much as we can. I'm assured, I see it, we get the validation. Councillor Patterson and I ask lots of questions and see evidence of officers working with those national decision makers around those catchment areas. We will continue to do that. So thank you very much, and we will be talking to those families and trying to offer as much reassurance as we can when we're not in control of an admissions process. When we have a school system that has lots of different arrangements, the ability for us to influence does make that a challenge. But that's not to say that we're not trying to do that. We do hear from those families. They're in communication with us regularly. We absolutely understand that. So we are talking to them, and we are absolutely trying to ask central government, the different government departments to make the decisions, and so we will keep on with that.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you. Thanks, Mel. Thank you. Right, back to item 9 again. Yes, Councillor Smage.
It follows on, please.
Right, it's been proposed in second, so all those in favour? That's carried. So we'll go to item 13.
been here since 5:30, yeah. And this morning, there was a Board of Trustee meeting which started 8:30, and these trustees are sitting here, they have to wait a long time, they might won't get a time. So can we have it, move the item before the item this one, please?
Who's seconding? In favour? Thus carried. Right, bit quiet please. Right, item 13, page 65, call-in of Cabinet decision, Children's Scrutiny Panel, Councillor Smage.
That the report and the outcomes of the calling of the Cabinet decision on Armonbury School be moved, and ask Councillor Marchington to update the Council on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smage. Councillor Marchington.
One of the members of the deputation, Beth Fry, asking her if there's any other issues to email those through to me in my capacity as chair of the Children's Scrutiny Panel, because we will follow those up. The report on the call-in is in front of members of council. I'd like to thank all of those people who contributed to the call-in, particularly parents and members of the public who came and made contributions, officers who did that, and the 2 cabinet members who responded. Also, the members of the panel who were involved with that. Those of you who were there will realise we spent a significant amount of time in the afternoon deliberating. That shows you how seriously we took that and how carefully we looked at the information that was made available. We did release the decision for implementation, but we are pleased to note that at the subsequent cabinet meeting, that Cabinet took on board the learning points that we wish to make. Some of those points actually have been addressed by parents, and it is important those addressed as a matter of urgency. Noted what Councillor Patterson has said about having a priority admission area designated by the 31st of October. If members of council would like to look at page 66 in their agenda, the final paragraph, one of the very careful deliberations we made was looking at the capacity in the system. And whilst we did recognise in the system as a whole there were sufficient places for pupils, we were concerned that it was not clear where children living in the Almonbury area would be going to school from September 2020. And we understood actually some really good diagrams given to us. We understand the complexity of the situation. Appreciated what the Director of Children's Services said tonight, Mel Meggs, about actually engaging with the departments of government about getting priority admission areas sorted out as soon as possible. Because that's one of the complexities. It's not reassuring for parents when they've not got that information available. But again, one of the learning points is when we do engage with parents about future school provision, we try and make things as clear as possible. And we understand people have been members of this council for a good while, who will have sat through, when we were looking at schools for the future, some of us sat through a 4.5-hour cabinet meeting listening to parents and deliberating. It is not simple, and we can appreciate that. But it is really important that we talk to parents, we listen to parents and take on board what we're doing. I know Councillor Smidge particularly is keen on pre-scrutiny. If scrutiny can help in the way that we look at that or analyse the way that we engage with parents, I'm sure we'd be willing to do that. And I'm sure that the panel, members of the panel, children's panel, just looking where members are, we're interested in that. The second key point I want to make is on page 67 about the openness. And again, it took us a long time, and we did eventually agree that the correct procedures had been gone through, but that wasn't clear. And that, the fact it took us a long time to and again, I think there was some acceptance about the issues around the financial position of the school. And again, some assumptions were made about that. And again, it's about openness, and we need to be as open as possible. If there's time later on, I didn't get a chance to make some response to Mel Meggs' presentation or what Viv said as Cabinet Member for Children's Services. I will try and do that in the scrutiny report under the role as Chair of Children's Panel. But one of the things that I've appreciated about both Mel's approach and Viv's approach as Cabinet Member is a degree of openness. And sometimes we're a bit worried about talking to parents about, particularly in all areas of council, but particularly talking to parents about the future of their children. It is really important that we do that. We make things as clear and as open as possible, and that was the second recommendation. And again, I am just to draw members of council's attention to point 3 under 2.3 about the regular updates on the to the children's panel of this. Interested, we will be asking for updates on the 31st of October catchment area date. Let me just think of the other points made and followers. So we will be following up the points that were raised both by the parents and by members in the near future. Thank you. Sorry, did I not second it? So I'd like to second the report, item 13, that's in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marchington. I think the hardest thing here is that the whole system has broken down on us, but we'll put Councillor Pattison. Well, I was just going to say, I wanted to say at the end that Mumtaz has done a fantastic job actually keeping things together when it's all just broken down very slowly. But I'll put Councillor Pattison on.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor. I'm sorry, really, actually, that Mel's wonderful presentation on how we have improved in children's services has been hijacked to talk about the Almondbury Schools issue. It has been a totally transparent process the whole way through. It has been scrutinised by a call-in decision. It's also been scrutinised by the school's organisational arrangements group. We've followed the government's guidelines. It's a bit ironic, really, to say we should have slowed this process. Am I being cut off? And going to the scrutiny panel in future to give updates, it is a bit ironic when David Hall is being asking us to slow the process down when in actual fact all of this could have been in place and parents assured by now had we not had the call-in and the decision made to call in that decision. We couldn't do anything until that process had been followed. We could not go to the school's adjudication body. We couldn't go to the education funding body until that decision was released for implementation. So that is why the catchment areas or knowledge on the catchment areas is delayed. But we've always assured parents that there will be places available to them. They will not be allocated somewhere. We are not going to tell any parent where they should be sending their child. We will be discussing the options that are in front of them and finding the best way forward, not just for an individual child, but for the whole family, because there'll be siblings involved as well. There'll be various personal arrangements that they have to make in as far as transportation goes, or getting to work, and everything that involves the whole family in this. So we've got to have those rounded up discussions with them, and they're personal. We can't make that public, and we certainly, as I said, we're not going to say, you're going to this school, you're going to that school. No child is being blocked from any school at the moment. They obviously, any child who wants to transfer from a school anywhere in Kirklees to a school that is full mid-year is going to have to go on a waiting list. But when it comes to the admissions arrangements, which will be totally there in place for Almondbury school kids, they're not being blocked from any choice that they may wish to make. There will be places available within the system as it exists at the moment, and we are in discussions, and the heads of all the local schools are being very accommodating in discussing with us the different options that there are. We will make all of this public as soon as we're able to by the national bodies and by the schools themselves. And we will talk to parents first. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll be brief. First point, on page 68, point 8, contact officer. The details are wrong on that, so that needs changing. Penny Bunker and Carl Whistlecraft's details are interchanged. Second point I'd like to make, very briefly, I said earlier that I would fully support Cabinet when they got things right. I'll also tell them when they got things wrong. And let me tell you, you got this wrong. You got it badly wrong. And to stand there and defend this decision, it's not defensible. People have been let down. You've heard from the parents earlier. You can't tell me that parents are actually understanding where their kids are going to school, what their options are, going to schools miles away from where they live, schools that have been rated as not fit for purpose practically by Ofsted. It's a disgrace, and you should rethink the whole thing.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
There's other speakers.
The script. But the panel did highlight a number of problems. I think what the first problem was that myself and my fellow councillors in Almondbury, Councillor Munro and Councillor Davis, we've been trying to communicate and get information from the officers about the future education of children in Almondbury, and it wasn't forthcoming. It just wasn't explained what was on offer, what was going to happen. I think what else the scrutiny panel highlighted was a lack of explanation on the viability, why the school wasn't viable, why it couldn't continue, and it really didn't come out until the final report why there was a big budget deficit. But we've been trying to ask questions about, was that budget deficit, for example, due to the private financial initiative? Now, if it was a question of no, it isn't, why wasn't the answer given? It was very simple questions we were asking. We asked them over and over again. We asked them in the cabinet. We asked them in private discussions. The parents were asking these questions. We never got answers to these questions until the last minute. Ridiculous. Having thanked the scrutiny panel for the work they did, the members of the scrutiny panel were told that they would have updates. And have you made clear, Councillor Martington, that they are keeping you updated with what's going on at the moment? I didn't quite get the message that they are updating you on what's going on in Almondbury Community School, because I've got a question on the for cabinet member later about whether there's been any Ofsted updates since the school went into special measures. We've heard nothing about what is going on in that school. If you look at the minutes of the Almondbury Community School interim executive, for example, every single minute, every item has been redacted since February. Nothing is there. Only the people that attended the meeting, and that's it. So if parents are looking for information on what's going on in the school, there's nothing on that website. That's ridiculous. Nothing, no information at all.
Because we've been through this before in Almondbury, we weren't allowed to give this at the scrutiny panel, but I think it's worth noting about the fact that 5 years ago we had a junior school in Almondbury. That was closed. It had a bad Ofsted report. It wasn't given an opportunity to turn itself around. The Cabinet made a decision to close the junior school and move the children into the high school building. The parents were furious about this. 80-90% of people in a consultation were against this move. I wasn't a councillor at the time, but I was involved with the parents, giving them advice, because I am a teacher. And it didn't stop. It didn't stop the closure of the junior school. Then the Cabinet tried to stop All Hallows School expanding their age range. Now, All Hallows, for those who don't know, was a small infant school in Almondbury.
Councillor, 30 seconds now.
Okay, they wanted to expand, and the Cabinet tried to stop them, but the parents wanted a standalone junior school in Almondbury, and I don't think they got that. It went to an appeal, and the Kirklees Council lost that appeal. Now we have the closure of secondary provision at Almondbury Community School. So we seem to have a Cabinet that are anti-Almondbury schools. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councillor McQueen. Thank you. Right, we're not going to take any further speakers. I know.
She's had a light on.
I know, but we've got. I think if ward members speak, because we've got Cal, and we voted on it that they're going to be. So if we, Councillor Monroe, yeah, okay.
Letter was sent home with children at the school, to the consultations, to the confusion as to capacity, to the one-to-ones where it was clear to parents and pupils that they felt they were being herded in one direction, away from ACS to King James's and Newsham, with no option to remain at ACS and no real explanation as to why it had to be closed, to the changes that were implemented that emerged in the statutory consultation that were not explained beforehand, to the current situation where we have children without priority admission and a seeming reluctance to meet with parents and officers and the council. Parents and children have suffered throughout this process. So, going forward, what can we learn? Is there a need for principles in decision-making to be taken into account so we do not see a repeat? Might there be a way to have genuine and open discussions with parents rather than encouraging them to take part in a box-ticking consultation exercise that has no bearing on the decisions being taken? Doing with instead of doing to seems the best way forward to me and should be taken into account in addressing this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Monroe. Councillor Davis.
I did have some words prepared just to remind and draw to people's attention the amount of stress to families and pupils in the area that's been not only ongoing up to this point, but families are still expressing and still suffering. It's impacting their welfare, their lives, their mental health of families and children. We've had 2 parents here tonight in support of that. However, I'm going to disregard those because having heard what's been discussed this evening, the main question I have to voice is how can the council reassure parents that their children will have a suitable place when in time for the application deadlines, when by the admissions made tonight, the council is not in control of the process and the catchment areas? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smidge. Right of reply.
Marchington, I thought, gave a very fair appraisal of what the scrutiny panel had looked at, and that the lessons learned the Cabinet have taken on board and will look at. Councillor Marchington has said, and I think absolutely right, that the Children's Scrutiny Panel will continue to monitor and receive updates on this particular issue. And I think it's right that the Children's Scrutiny Panel continue to have that overview of this process going forward. One of the things that I wanted to say in the annual report was about pre-decision scrutiny. And I think it really is important in this council that we have more pre-decision scrutiny than we currently do. Because I think having that third set of eyes from scrutiny that is not wholly involved in the process can actually be helpful and can actually contribute and provide that critical friend, so that when you're all caught up, and you know, for instance, we had a situation in health and social care, that you're all caught up in it and you understand what you mean, but to the outside and to everybody else, is that apparent what you mean? And I think it is important that scrutiny can have that pre-decision role to provide that critical friend. Okay? I will though say, Councillor Pattison, having said all that I was disappointed by your response tonight. This was the scrutiny ad hoc, scrutiny calling, I will call it an ad hoc, scrutiny that we were talking about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, item 11, Kirklees active leisure performance. Councillor Sokol, member of Carl, will introduce our speakers.
Look, Mr. Mayor, thank you for bringing this item forward, because there are only half an hour left. I was going to say a few words about the Carl Bow, because time is not giving permission to me. So I introduced two of my colleagues, which is Don Stevenson, who is the chair of the Carl Board of Trustees, and Brian Carl, trustee and managing director of Stafflex. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, leave it to you.
Thank you, Councillor Sokol. We've got 25 minutes that include the presentation and the questions, because we've got another item that we have to finish tonight. So over to you. Thank you.
Brian and I will spend very briefly going through a few areas, and we get our able assistant to run the presentation. Thank you. Basically, we're going to give a quick overview of what CAL is, because I think we've got some new people in the chamber. Also, how we contribute as CAL to the wider Kirklees agenda. So we're talking about outcomes in terms of well-being, early intervention, prevention and economic growth. We'll also as well, I won't depress you all, but we will cover some of the challenges that we're facing, but I think more importantly, it's how we approaching those challenges to knock them on the head. CAL was born in 2002. It was the brainchild of the council, and this came about because at the time there was a need for capital investment. Some of the facilities were in a poor state of repair, and because of that we were losing footfall. There was a bit of decline in revenue, and as a consequence the council were having to put more into the subsidy. What we're really proud about in CAL is that we don't have a contract, we have a partnership agreement, and that's really important because it's about working in partnership that we've actually succeeded in Cal. So, because of the work we've been doing with the council, that partnership was extended in 2012 for a further 20 years. We are not the council in disguise. We are an independent charitable trust. We were established as a company limited by guarantee, and we have 12 trustees, which includes 2 of your councillors, Mark and Mohan. The trustees are voluntary, they don't get paid, they give the professional time up free of charge. They're also either working Kirklees or as part of the community. And I think the key about Cal as well, with it being not-for-profit, that over a number of years, as well as coming to the council for borrowing, we've also put £10 million of our own money back into the facilities within Kirklees, which I think is really, really important. Obviously, we do have some competition out there from some of the private big sector boys, but actually, we're a community-based charity. We have grown over the years, and we've moved from sort of 8.5 million up to 14.5. We are quite a big employer of people within Kirklees. We employ about 800 staff, and I think the interesting point is that half of those staff are actually under 25. So we think that we are one of the biggest employees of under 25 in the borough. So I think which is quite important. Thank you. We can just move on quickly. I'm sorry, I'm cantering through this because I'm sort of concerned about the time that we've got. I think one of the things that we do provide is we run 13 leisure centres, which includes a golf course and also the facilities down at Leeds Road. And as well as some of the big centres that we've got at Huddersfield Leisure and Spen and Dewsbury, we're also really proud of the sort of smaller community centres that we also provide, which are out in Batley, Spen, City, just to name a few. Thank you. If you could just move on, thank you. One of the things that we try and do is provide what we consider to be good value for money. And I think this graph shows how we're trying with, and you can see on the graph, hopefully, that our turnover's been increasing at the same time as the council grant has been going down. And from about 17-18, we've been seeing a decrease in the amount of fitness members we've got. So what we're trying to do is increase the other things that we do. I'm cantering through, so the next one is very key to us, is maintaining good customer satisfaction. So we've always got room for improvement, but I think if you look at the slide, overall, 8 out of 10 of our customers are really pleased with the services that we provide. And you might say, well, what about the other 2? Well, yeah, it's always about being on top of what we do, but actually we compare very well with other leisure services up and down the country. We've had a couple of blips, as you can see, in 2018 when it dropped, but that was actually sort of a good news story because we were doing a development at Batley Sports and Tennis, which Brian will pick up later on. Thank you. As well as working closely with Kirklees Council, we work very closely as well with other partners in Kirklees. So I know Alistair is on the third sector leaders board. We're working very closely with the Forget Not Children's Hospice at the moment to try and use our footfall in our centres to raise their profile and hopefully get more money into the hospice, you know, for the good causes that they do. And also we are working very closely with North Huddersfield Trust School and the Giants, and I was actually there on Friday as well when they succeeded in not going down, which I think was a very positive thing as well, so thank you. As well as making a contribution to the Chief Medical Officer recently has done his report about the importance of activity, especially for some of older ones as well, about strengthening and balance, etc. We're also making a positive contribution to the mental health and well-being of people in Kirklees as well. who tell us that coming to our centres make them feel more confident and happier. They have a greater sense of community. They meet up with their friends, and it actually improves their quality of life.
Good evening. Given that we're under pressure of time, I'm not going to canter, but I'm going to invent a new Kirklees active leisure word called callop, and I'm going to callop through this as fast as I can. What we're now going to discuss and outline are the positive contributions that Cal makes to the total Kirklees outcomes. There are 4 key contributions, and we brand them as well, best start, aspire and achieve, and high quality environment. The first one, well, it is well known that regular activity benefits physical and mental health. It also provides opportunity for social interaction through people meeting others when they're undertaking the activities. There are over 3 million visits to Cal each year, and there are over 50,000 who are either fitness or FlexiCard members. So, well encourages people to adopt a healthy lifestyle. The next is best start. 7,500 children attend Cal swim lessons each week. Cal Club allows young people to do gym and fitness-based activities individually or with their families. The splash park at the Huddersfield Leisure Centre is busier than ever and actually brings people into the area from outside. So Best Start aims to give children the best start in life through activity and social interaction. Aspire and Achieve, 57% of Cal staff are under 25, which Dawn referred to earlier on. We believe Cal is the biggest employer of young people in Kirklees. Aspire and Achieve encourages young people to achieve through education, training, employment, and lifelong learning. Many examples of the current staff of Cal started when they were under 25, and they have developed good careers into middle and senior management. The fourth, which is high quality environment, the Cal facilities across the area provide affordable access and easy access to varied activities for all within a quality, clean and green environment. The examples of Best Start are Home Start, and this slide really is a testimonial written by somebody else, but this partnership with Home Start encourages young parents and disadvantaged groups throughout Kirklees to visit Cal sites, the gyms and swim pools, to enjoy activities they might otherwise not have access to, and the benefit is introducing people to activities that they can continue throughout the rest of their life. The second example is Cal and School's presentation offer, and Kirklees School Swimming Service transferred to Cal in July this year. And this offer, together with Swim for Free, extended to schools, parents, pupils and staff, encourages activity not done before and encourages people to be more active more often, hopefully. It's interesting that 86% of Kirklees school children can swim 25 metres. The national average is about 48%. Currently, more than 80 schools have subscribed to this. Kirklees Care Leavers fitness offer. This is a further example of Best Start, and this fitness offer to Kirklees Care Leavers with or without children, and as well as Kirklees College, offers free fitness membership, free swimming lessons, employment opportunities, and in addition, we are currently investigating how this can be extended to foster carers and those in their care. The Uniform Exchange, this is a very effective local charity which recycles school clothing and helps to offset the high cost of kitting out children when they're going to school. The Cal sites are used as donation points, and by this introduces Cal to a wider public who call in to donate but may never have heard of Cal and are therefore introduced to the services that we offer. And in 2018, the charity assisted at least 850 children to attend school appropriately dressed, and the forecast for this year is much higher. So to conclude, my part of this colour is Best Start. These 4 examples of Best Start do highlight the partnerships involving CAL that make a huge difference to families most in need of our area. Thank you.
Thank you. If we can move on then. CAL is no different to yourself or any other third sector. We face a number of considerable challenges, and we've tried to split these into sort of the 2 main ones. The first one is the KC funding reductions that we've been facing over the last few years, which for a small organisation are quite challenging. The second one is we've relied in the past on a sort of growth model around our membership, but again with the competition that we're seeing from the JD in Huddersfield and Dewsbury, we're coming to a point of market saturation, but we've also got people with less disposable income as well. Spen Valley Leisure Centre, great news, and can we thank the council as well for that, because it's brilliant. But we will have a bit of short-term pain because we're having to move some of our existing customers to other centres, and we've just taken on the swimming as well, so again we're having to move those around the system as well. But it's going to be great at the end of it. We have some emerging pressures like lots of people around the table. We've got the statutory payroll costs, the minimum wage for over 25, but CAL has always in the past tried to give that increase to under 25s as well. So we're not discriminating with 2 people stood next to each other and one's under 25 and one's over. But that 4% plus that we're covering each year is putting a lot of pressure on the system. We've got capital replacement, but again working with the council, we're on top of that. Some good news, we're actually chocker at peak times, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 10, but how can we get new people in when some of the facilities are absolutely crammed? So it's about how we use our other space during the day. Workforce, through some of the efficiencies we've made, we've taken staff out, but that again puts pressure on frontline staff, and we again need to make sure we provide a good quality service. Otherwise, again, we'll lose customers coming through the door. And then we've got the B word, and that's not Boris, it's Brexit. So again, we're not sure how that's going to impact on us. So what we're doing about it, you're going to ask? Well, we've already done a business re-engineering programme to look at how we can work better across all our 13 sites. That can be tricky because you try and do things corporately, but at the same time, you've got to make sure that sort of the local community centres can still deal with the health and safety, customer satisfaction, cleanliness, those things that are important at a community level. We're also trying to manage the fitness market. We think we've peaked, but it's about keeping those people in there and not losing them. We also need to highlight why we think we're different, and we think we are, because we have an offer that's not just about one gym, it's about 13 facilities across Kirklees, which we think are brilliant facilities, and we're also a part of the Kirklees community. We've also as well working closely with the council, looking at different markets, working with around the integrated wellness model, so again, the new people that we can bring into the centres. And the final thing, which is the key thing for us, we are growing what we call our family attraction products. So for us, it's not about staying still, it's about diversification. And again, we're quite unique in that what we've tried to do as a leisure service is bring these under one brand, which is the Year Days Out. So again, we've learnt from some of the facilities that we've had through Huddersfield Leisure Centre, and we've brought in TagX and the Dare to Wear and Stompers. And I don't know if people have been out at those facilities, but they are fantastic. And one of the challenges that we might do to the councillors is get the trustees to take on the councillors at TagX. You can think about that. But we're bringing facilities in that mean you don't have to be dressed in lycra, you don't have to be a keep fit fanatic. Bring the family in. It's about getting everybody active. Thank you. This is just an example of the number of people that we're now bringing through. And you can see with these new attractions, 300,000 people in the last 12 months, which I think is fantastic. And if we can just move on to the next slide, this actually shows us where the people are coming from. And it's not just about the people in Kirklees. We're bringing people into Kirklees from Bradford and Leeds, and that means we're bringing money in. You know, we're bringing money into the council, we're bringing it in to suppliers, car parking, you name it, people are coming in. So I think it's really good that we're doing that. We'll just quickly go on as well to the next part. Again, you can see the splash park, Huddersfield Leisure Centre, all those people that we're bringing in into Kirklees. So those visitors, those pounds. So I'm not avaricious, but it's really, really good news that we're bringing those people in. So thank you. I think we want to continue as well to roll these attractions out into other centres. So again, the next one that we're doing, and we're working again very closely with the council and their officers, is about bringing a family attraction into Dewsbury, probably an inflatable, building on the experience that we've already got. We're also as well keen to call Dewsbury the leisure centre. So again, it's not about Lycra, it's about everybody having that opportunity to come in. That includes as well sorting the passenger lift out that we need, and hopefully working with the council late summer, that will be open. So that's great. And hand over to Brian quickly. Oh right, sorry, this is the fantastic new Spen Valley Leisure Centre. So, in summary, we think we've got a great partnership with the council. There are some difficult decisions to be made going forward, but it's about working together. We need to maintain the high quality of the facilities we've got, so it's about that ongoing investment. We can't stand still, so we need money to keep going forward. It's about supporting those disadvantaged groups that we've already talked about, the carers, etc. And it's about seizing future opportunities when they arise, promoting Kirklees and getting people in. So I'm sorry that's been a real quick canter through, but hopefully we've got time for a few questions.
Right, thank you very much for that presentation. We've only got 5 minutes left, so if anybody wants to... Steve?
The Spen Leisure Centre quite often, and it's a thank you to all the staff there, volunteers and carers that I see on a regular basis, helping people that to me are doing fantastic work, and that's work with people who are recovering from strokes. I'd just like to congratulate all of them for the work they do, the joy that they bring to these people, and also how important it is for people of, I'm going to say at a certain age, not older people, because I don't want the deputy leader's wife, the ex-deputy leader's wife, to give me a crack when we go out at the weekend. So it's a thank you to all the staff for the fantastic jobs that they're doing. Thank you.
Just as the mayor, I'm actually been a member for 2 years, and it's about getting there, getting the time. Well, I go to the Dewsbury side, and it's really fantastic, and the staff is really good too. So if you could just relay that back to them, thank you. Anybody else?
Quickly wanted to say it was a great, just to welcome your approach, because Alistair, the CEO, and myself have met about issues around saving energy, because it's really relevant to the issue of climate change, of course, as well. Saving money also means saving carbon. And I just wanted to say what forward-thinking approach you've taken over the last few years, and it's paying dividends. It's cutting energy consumption, and if you think about the buildings that you're using, they're incredibly energy intensive, aren't they? Like swimming pools and lots of showers and all that sort of stuff. So it's a really good news story, and I think it shows what can be achieved with a bit of progressive thinking, a bit of investment, and it's the kind of approach that I think we will be taking forward in future years. So the question I wanted to ask, have any further opportunities that you are thinking of exploring with sports and leisure facilities in Kirklees in the future? So that's it really.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor, for that kind comment. Yes, energy management's been high on our agenda for a long time. I think the next big projects, there are always new things to do with energy. It's one of the great things, there's always innovation coming along. So solar panels, definitely, we'd like to see those on some of our roofs of some of the big leisure centres in time once the payback period becomes better. And also, I think you know that we're trying to work hard with the stadium. The stadium's the key one. We'd love that to be a model of good practice, you know, in Kirklees. So we're trying to meet with KSDL very shortly to try and take that forward. So we're quite excited about that. Lots of potential there, definitely.
Thank you. Councillor Turner, quickly.
As its portfolio holder, I work with Cal on a regular basis, and I'd just like to thank them, the directors, the trustees, all the staff do a fantastic job. It's all in here. If you just take a few minutes to read this, they've been really at the forefront of changing the business model, putting Tag X in, and the play gyms and all those sort of things. They've not stood still. They've really understood the market needs to change, and they've changed it. I think they're a really shining example of how working with partners can deliver for the residents of Kirklees. And just one thing, there's no way the trustees are going to get me doing Tag X.
Right, thank you very much, guys. Thank you. And right, thank you, everybody. So, item 10, report of members' allowance independent review panel. Can we go straight to the vote?
Propose and second it. We proposed and seconded it. Who's proposing, who's seconding it?
So, who's proposing and seconding, please? So we can go straight to the vote.
Councillor Simpson. Let me just move it.
If I may say very briefly, Mr. Mayor, corporate governance and audit went on a real journey with this report, and I'm really pleased after some robust discussions that we finally got it approved unanimously to bring it to full council. So I would like to move it, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. Seconding.
Second reserve right.
That's carried. Thank you. Meeting closed. Sorry.
With the permission of the meeting, as an addendum to the motion, can I ask officers to circulate that before we move directly to the vote? Thank you.
Under the same agenda items, I'd like to move the motion.
Finish this one, yeah?
Has the amendment been shared?
Very quietly.
It's Council Procedure Law 16. It has to be more than 12 minutes. Yeah, I've got a second, hasn't it?
Has everybody got the amendments? Yeah? Right. Can we move on to the motion that's been amended and can we vote on that? So, show of hands. Show of hands.
All those in favour? Yeah, as amended.
As amended, yeah? That's carried, thank you. Right, we're approaching 9 o'clock now, so I'm closing the meeting. Thank you.
Well done.